What is up, everyone? What is up? Apparently me woke up from a nap I didn't plan on having. But, yeah. Also, got a couple of minor desk upgrades over here. I don't know if you noticed that I have a different desk mat now today. Had that for a few years, and then I also got some things in from AliExpress. You're in Portugal? Nice. Portugal's been one place I've always kind of wanted to eventually possibly move to. I did visit there, what was it, about 2 years ago now? Many gay dudes, too bad I'm straight. Well, are they, is it just that they're European, or are they actually gay? But what's everyone doing this weekend? I woke up super early this morning. Had to take my CompTIA test for WGU. I passed A+ Core 1 and Core 2, so I'm officially qualified for help desk after being in the field for 15 years. I also got a bunch of new glasses. This is one of the pairs. Every few years I like to go get a few glasses, and I always keep a main pair, a backup pair, and then a backup to the backup pair. So, picked these up at Costco. Taking advantage of the vision insurance and stuff while I still have it for my current job. So, yeah, I don't know if many of you heard, but, I got a new job, starting in a few weeks. What's up, vampire? So, yeah, there will definitely be an upcoming video where I turn this into some learning lessons as far as what you should and should not accept in a job. There were a lot of toxic things in my job, primarily having to do with not necessarily my direct manager, but his manager. A bunch of people were complaining about it. They actually said, well, we're not really offering you a raise or a bonus, and because I was busting ass doing a bunch of things that the rest of my team honestly doesn't know how to do. Not because, they're incapable, it's just there's so many different tasks on the team. And unfortunately, scripting and knowing how to do infrastructure as code and automations are not really commonplace. Did I quit Linux content? No, I've just moved most of my content to YouTube. TikTok gets the scraps of just the clips from those videos. I've been doing that for quite a while now. Yeah. So it's not that I have quit content, it's that I've moved it more to live streams and YouTube content, and then TikTok I take the clips out of from the YouTube videos so that I can at least, keep that alive. But I've been telling people for months, you gotta go to the live streams and the TikTok, YouTube. Yeah, it's just that TikTok, I've been feeling this issue with them for a long time. And I have a whole logging server I'm going to be building. I was planning on doing it today, but honestly, I'm a little bit too tired. Not tired, but just out of it. But we have a box of parts over here that we're going to be putting into the logging server. This was the old firewall, so we're going to replace the NIC in here with a graphics card because it seems like the internal VGA here went bad. And it's plenty. There's plenty of Ethernet ports here just for what I need anyway. And these ones are better than the IGB card anyway over here. We're gonna be. I already upgraded the RAM into this, the 64 gigabytes of DDR4 ECC. So that's interesting. I just noticed. Metal's bowed a little. Anyway, I'm gonna be putting a new SATA SSD in here and an M.2. We're gonna reuse the two SATA SSDs in here for the operating system, and should be a nice little logging server. So I'm gonna be moving over everything. Also during the week, speaking of logging servers, I rewrote the SIM, the Security Information and Event Monitoring System that I was using, because I found out InfluxDB had, too many cardinalized variables, and it slowed down immensely, because every time there was a block on pfblocker ng, it would actually store the IP address and port, and then you had all those combinations, and it just eventually filled up after a few weeks that it was a limitation of InfluxDB. And that was a database and setup that I grabbed from somebody else many years ago, and it worked alright, but I re-engineered the whole thing, so now my dashboard uses OpenSearch and InfluxDB, with InfluxDB just being the system parameters that it's fine with, and then OpenSearch managing all the pfblocker ng stuff. That's already on my GitHub, so if anyone wants to look at that, you can. Easiest way to learn VLANs, pfSense, the pfSense manual, and get yourself a managed switch, get yourself a decent firewall. Like, I recommend a pfSense box. You don't have to get one like this, but you can use a spare computer or something. And get tagging different traffic. I'm in the middle of zero trusting things little by little, but yeah. So it's a process, but yeah. And then we worked on the LLM server, so it looks like that is working just fine now, because if I look at the streaming now, yeah, it's now actually making custom messages through my own LLM server. What's up, Slavi? But yeah, so this will be a project that I'm going to be working on. There's a chance that actually between my new job and this, we're going to have a week off. So there may be a week towards the end of February where I'm going to be streaming and doing more content and editing things and have a bunch more videos ready to go. So that'll be fun. Which open source LLM do you install? A bunch. I have a bunch on there. I've got Quen 3 14B, I've got Gemma 3 12B, I've got DeepSeek Coder 6.7B, I've got Hermes, I've got New Hermes, I've got Mistral, I've got a bunch on there. You're just catching me live for the first time? Well, welcome. But yeah, so this logging server will be a project I will do in the near future. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but I got a new desk mat, like I was saying when I first started. Nothing wrong per se with this, it was just a few stains were getting bad. This is a Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, if you can't tell. So now, I got a new one! It's a little bit bigger. They didn't make, I couldn't find any on AliExpress that did 300 millimeters anymore, so I settled for 400 and did that, and that's just kind of on top of my Logitech Power Play little brick over there and everything, but it works. Still works. What's my distro choice these days for daily driving? I still use Pop! OS for daily driving things. I'm still on 2204 until about April-ish, when, 2604 gets released. No point in me jumping straight to 2404 if 2604 is going to be released right around the corner. That way I can have a longer life cycle with it. But yeah, I use that. I use Parrot OS, and I use Cubes OS, and then Ubuntu. I mean, daily driving. You got self-driving distro? No. And then I got a few things from AliExpress as well, because my case is so freaking large. I was like, maybe we should put an anime figure or two in there. And I got some one-piece little figurines. It's interesting how cheap these were. No, it looks like they just... So you got Luffy there. Hopefully quick queue. Does your IPS come before or after your firewall? The IPS is in the firewall. Mine's inline. So I have a Suricata do everything inline, so I don't have to deal with it. Chief made his own self-driving car. I wish. These were only like what? $4 or $5 off of AliExpress, so not too bad. Gonna annoy you a lot. Well, I do have a Discord, so more than welcome to join that. This room I'm using Pop OS currently. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the caffeine to hit my head, because, yeah, that's the problem with the nap. You, especially ones you don't plan, you just end up, going to sleep, and then you're like, huh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, there's also the Matrix server, too. You gotta remember to talk about that. So basically just, it looks like use the same base for all of these. Interesting. Not bad for like $5 on AliExpress, we'll say. Of course, if you buy the official stuff, it'll cost way more. And you get 2 heads. Been in tech for 5 years, but I'm just now taking it seriously. Got imposter syndrome. Yeah, that'll happen. I mean, everyone in tech pretty much has imposter syndrome at a little bit. I'm cracking up because just this morning I finished up the A+ cert. I had to do Core 1 last week, Core 2 this week. Yeah. Of course, this is only like, what, $5? Eh, you get another head. You're starting for Network Plus and don't know shit. I have to take the Network Plus, I think, next. Well, after I finish, what is it, I have a couple more classes at WGU, and then I will be doing, yeah, I think the Network Plus is coming up. I have a list somewhere. It's Network Plus, I don't remember the particular order, but it's Network Plus, I got pen test plus data plus, I think Linux plus is another one they're having me do. And then I don't know if I really like that there. One thing I never got about One Piece is let's give Zoro 3 swords so that way he can just hold one in his teeth. Oh, Zoro from One Piece. They give you 2 heads apparently. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to stick this in, or am I gonna just like settle for super gluing it? Are you watching some videos? Yeah, we are in a second. Right now, I got my little toys to play with. One of these is probably going to end up in my computer, though. Because I got space. Maybe 2. I also have a Naruto one coming in. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to sit him on top of the GPU, but we'll see how the thermals go with that. Zoro got so lost, he ended up in Chief's house. Yep, pretty much par for the course. You know, considering I think this was only like $5, it's actually pretty good. I got them off of AliExpress along with the new desk mats. We got Luffy over there. And you got Sanji over here. And then I also got one of my all-time favorite anime characters. If you don't know, you guys want to guess what one of my all-time favorite animes is? Besides One Piece. One Piece is pretty good. I'll give you a hint. It's in the screen right now. It's on the camera right now. If you're on TikTok, you can't see it though. So yeah, you got Sanji right there. You can collect their bounties now. I could. Want to start 3D printing? Any suggestions for a 3D printer? Creality has some pretty good 3D printers inexpensively. I'm more of a fan of Prusa though. What SD card brand do you suggest? Samsung. Did you watch One Jump Man? I haven't seen One Jump Man. So one of my all-time favorite animes is Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. That was actually one of the first animes I think I really enjoyed and got into. Man, her foot does not want to go in. May have to take a knife and cut off any of that. Samsung has pretty reliable ones. SanDisk is fine too. Honestly, half the time these days I just go to Micro Center and I just get their flash drives. Yeah. Unless I have particular reasons. There you go. The General from Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. That is one of the best all-time shows, I have to say. It's really fascinating when you watch Ghost in the Shell, especially knowing how ahead of the time it was. Because back then, you know, we were just talking about the internet coming out. If you think about when it came, was you know, released, and they were theorizing AI, what defines an actual human, and yeah. I could probably put 1 or 2 of these in there. Probably put the major in there. We'll figure out what other one in there. Maybe I can fit a couple more. It's a pretty big case. But yeah, so there we go. That came in. Oh yeah, and then I have another desk mat around here somewhere. Also of Ghost in the Shell. With one of the Tachikomas. That's a show that I think could have definitely gone on a little bit longer. You've been looking into Ray Hunter? Yeah, it's fun. I built it. If you haven't seen my videos on it. Sorry I'm a little bit out of it today. It's just been a long day. I woke up at like 5:30 this morning. Had to run to the testing center. Finish up the CompTIA Plus. You got Ghost in the Shell shirts? I do not yet. Most of my t-shirts are honestly cybersecurity related. So, well, cybersecurity and Linux related. Congratulations on your new job and certs. Thank you. I will have a video talking about the A+ certification. The honest truth, I didn't study for it. I just passed it. But the A+ is seriously more about fundamentals. So if you're in the field for like even a few months, you should know a lot of this stuff. It's like how to open a closed ticket, change management process, Mac, Windows, Linux basics, you know, basic networking, really basic, like not even network plus basic. But I'll put it this way. Don't think that just because you pass an A+, that you're some hot shit. It's a checkbox. I'm gonna be honest with you. There was a few questions that I had in the practice exams from a CompTIA officially that they were wrong. I'm not just saying that to like be like, well, you know, be a dick, but it's true, they were wrong. And there were a few questions, even on the main test, where I'm like, you're not giving me enough information to give you the proper answer. So I had to go with best effort answer. But look, the A+ is at most a checkbox for HR. It's really dumb, but I'm getting to this problem right now. Even though I just landed a new job, I got a shit ton of rejections. Because, and I think it had to do with the fact that I don't have the check boxes of, oh, he doesn't have a 4-year degree. Oh, he doesn't have X, Y, and Z cert. That's why, I've noticed this stupid thing where I've talked to some HR people. They'll know what Security Plus is, but not what CISSP is. Even though CISSP, I hold more value for than a Security Plus. But then again, the CISSP is like 5 years of industry requirements to begin with. But yeah. You said your headphone dent. I don't have a headphone dent. Because the only time I really wear headphones is now. And I don't have it like completely rest there. If you notice, I mostly have it tilt off. Just received system update on Pop OS 2404. Yeah, you'll get updates and all that. Why do they expect a 4-year degree for any of this? It's stupid. It's really stupid because HR doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm just gonna be honest. The average HR person I've talked to, or even recruiter for the tech industry, has no idea what they're actually hiring for. I've seen job description that when you read them, they're not asking for a person, they're asking for an entire freaking department. Oh, we want you to pen test and do DevOps and do networking and manage endpoints and, you know, do MDM. And I'm like, that's a whole department. No one person can do all of that well. Don't get me wrong, I can do quite a bit of that. But I know where my limitations and my focuses are, and you're going to want to also split that between different people. France is moving away from American OS for Linux. Yeah, that's nothing new. They've been doing that for a while. Same as Germany. And you know what? I applaud them. Because the thing is, the more countries that move away from Microsoft, the more power they lose, and the more we can actually start using open source solutions. Microsoft has had a monopoly for too long. What are your options on the AMD? I don't know what options. 10-year experience, no degree, no certs. A lot of rejection here. Yep. 15 years experience. Only a 2-year degree. Only a CISSP. Still a lot of rejections. Now, I did happen to land a new job. I'm getting a 40% pay bump. I should get the emails this week for, the background checks and all the usual stuff that you have to do, drug test, all that. Oh yeah, that's one thing a lot of people ask me. It's like, do you get drug tested in cybersecurity? And I'm like, pretty often, yeah, depending on the industry. Which is fine, I don't really do any of that stuff anymore. I have a drink once in a while. But yeah. I mean, I left a lot of that stuff back in college. But yeah, so I already put my 2 weeks in at work. It was such a freaking power move. It was amazing. I don't know if y'all have been in the Discord and seen the memes that I've done. So there were some really, really great memes, and I've sent a few others to my friends. Let me see if I can pull some of them up. Give me a sec, because it was like a few days ago. Well, there's me and my buddy going back and forth making jokes. Okay, so we had this. You've been denied a raise. Also, we're going RTO, return to office. New quest, leave. Rewards, 40% more pay. Hybrid mode, unlocked. Minus chaos. So there's less chaos, potentially at the new job, which is always great. We had the, this one with Guru's evil plan. Build automation, save time. Announce RTO. Deny raise and bonus. Why would they resign? We had this one that I made. Do busy work manually forever. Automate it. Punish the person who automated. Act shocked when they leave for 40% more plus hybrid. Have you smoked the green happy grass? Not in a long time. I have nothing against it. Of course, we got the Drake. You know, no raise, no bonus, no RTO. 40% more pay, plus hybrid. Bye! I think that was the last meme that I had for that. But yeah, it's been a great time doing that. It was such a power move, you have no idea. Because they were giving me shit. Like, leadership is toxic over there. And I've talked to former people that worked where I work. And they say that basically, unless you fit a mold and shut up and just do what they say, you're not going to get anywhere, and you're just going to, you know, yeah. And because I was the one that kept going out of the way to find gaps, where I'm like, okay, it looks like the rest of my team has this. let me go work on these areas where my skills are a little bit better, like scripting, automating, researching AI, things like that that they needed for work, and automating a lot of the work. There was a lot of hours saved that I've done. Like, seriously. So, before I came in, operations used to manually have to contain devices that were older than 30 days. I automated that entire thing, had it generate reports, and then put it into Datadog. That literally saved hours per day. Because it took like 10-15 minutes for each device to get contained. What game was that? It's an AI generated thing. So I did that. We were manually having to scale back Zscaler app connectors when they would scale out. I've scaled that back in automatically. So that saved us a little bit of time every month when it would automatically do that because of the load. Sundays, 2 o'clock in the morning, it would scale in. Tenable servers, we used to have to manually update the Red Hat boxes on that, or Amazon Linux, and now I have it automatically doing that and emailing when that happens. Oh, and then they couldn't figure out, because they didn't have a proper CMDB, what devices were missing CrowdStrike, Tenable, or Zscaler agents installed. So I went through, crafted this massive Python script that lets me grab the reports from every platform. I didn't get to automate it with the API yet. That was on the roadblock. I was just making a minimum viable product. And then had it generate all that, build executive summaries for the leaders, and the mobile executive summary, so you could actually tell what iPhones were still authenticated properly, because that was another issue into Zscaler. Literally, not only answered the question they haven't been able to answer since before I started there, on how much coverage do we have, because before they used to do, it feels like we have most things covered. I now definitively could say, no, we have 94.3% of machines all installed with X tool. And then get you an entire list of the ones missing it, because I would pull it from Intune, Jamf, and all the platforms, and then cross-compare all of them, servers and desktops. And that would make a report in 6 minutes. A lot of the things that would take them hours to make Excel documents for, I had a Python create an Excel sheet with all the different sheets, master sheets, so that you could assign it to different teams. In 6 minutes. Why is drug testing so strict? It's more of a liability thing. A lot of industries have regulations, because you have to remember, like for example, even though cannabis is legal in most of the US, it is not legal federally. And you have a lot of industries that deal with federal regulations. So, you may not need to get randomly drug tested unless there's an accident, but you do at least have pre-employment drug testing, usually to reduce the liability that they have, as well as, like, insurance may call for it and things like that. Now, I have a feeling once, you know, the laws start changing, that's going to change as well. Because companies want an excuse to fire you. Pretty much. But, Abby, legal. But, yeah, so, yeah, things are gonna be, improving, but my job was way underpaying me. I was making just shy of 100. Now I'm making about a little more than 40% more to do, literally, from what they're telling me, a lot less than I was doing before, because before we were so understaffed, it's not even funny. Like, let's put this in perspective here. Most companies have 2 to 4 employees, maybe more, per vendor product. So, for example, you get CrowdStrike. You'll have 2 to 4 engineers just on CrowdStrike. And then you'll have operations, using the tool. And then for like email filtering, you'll have like 2 to 4 people maybe manage that. And then, vulnerability management, same thing. Rinse and repeat. We had 4 people for 5 different tools. 4 people covering all 5 tools. You could imagine how much that context switching would burn you out. And then they bitch, it's like, well, you don't seem to know enough about this tool over here, and, leadership wants you to step up, and I'm like, I got this fucking shit over here! It's not an unwillingness to be able to, learn and do things. It is inhumanly possible to do all the things that they are asking of a person. What is one project you put on hold due to cost but wish to continue with once you have the money? In my personal lab, 10 gigabit networking. I kind of started it. The firewall at least supports 10 gigabit LAN, but yeah. But, yeah. Anyway, let me find out where we were on the videos. Here we are. ADTH box bricked. Let me make sure the audio is going out. Alright, hold on. Okay, I gotta wake up the capture card. Nope. I always forget if it's 1 or 3.
Front, left.
3. And then now, it should work.
Front, left.
There we go. Wish and prayers for you to find a better paying job in the same career. Oh, I already have a better paying job coming. I have a new job that's making me focus more on what I want to do, and I'm going to get paid a lot more for it. And I get to keep hybrid because the job that I currently have is going RTO. So that's already happening. I just got to wait for all the HR crap and, all that to happen. So they got to send me the background check documents, next steps, if I got to take a, drug test, all that kind of jazz that you normally have to go through for a cybersecurity job. Give me 1 second. I got to turn the heater on in the basement. Tis a tit bit nipply. Okay. I have a gas heater built into the wall in my little workspace down here. It came with the house. I did replace the heater itself, but anyway, you just turn the knob and it warms up. In office to attend meetings over video call. That is the one thing that's cracked me up. Hey, we want you to come into the office. Okay, full screen for this and then we'll get to the video. That is the one thing that's cracked me the hell up. My job that I currently have is like, well, we're going to go return to office because we find that it's, more efficient and more collaborative. Translation, you have a building you paid for. You want to make sure there's asses in seats so you can micromanage everybody because management doesn't actually prove enough value, so they have to go around proving to themselves that they have value. And then the majority of the meetings that I have when I am in the office are not in a conference room. They are on a video call. So we are hopping on Teams to have a call for everyone that is merely a few desks away. Like the furthest person is like 40, 50 feet away. What is the point in that? What is the point in going return to office if you're just going to hop on a Teams call and everyone is just going to be, there? It makes no sense to me. And the honest truth is, I've come around to this kind of thinking because I've seen, some people talk about this. Companies that have meetings, like regular, meetings, like they have too many meetings, are usually the worst performing ones. Because I know one of my coworkers that literally has meetings, like most of the days when he's in the office, because he has to get all the criteria from all the different company teams and all that. And I'm sitting here, in most of these meetings, why can't I just get an email with the agenda? And then what you actually need in the, all that stuff. Because most of the meetings I've been in could just be an email. But yeah. The network at work is orders of magnitude less functional than whatever the hell is going on at home. I had a manager that would sometimes be in 3 different meetings at once. What the hell? Have you ever done any bug bounty hunting? Not really. I have friends that do it. The problem is with bug bounty hunting is that you are competing against many other people. Is it okay to do as a side hobby? Yeah, but I wouldn't do it as your primary source of income. I think a lot of people fall prey to a lot of the parts of cybersecurity that they're like, oh, this is cool. Here's the problem. Not every company's going to pay out for the bug bounties. Not every company's going to pay out for the amount that you want to get paid. And then the amount of time it takes if you do get paid out often. Because, I know a person that's like, hey, it took me, a year once to get a payout for the $1,000 that they had for this bug bounty or something like that. I'd say do it as a fun side hobby, but it wouldn't be your primary source of income because you also have to be the first person to get the bug bounty. So there's a good chance that when you find a bug bounty, you may be reporting on something somebody else already caught up on. But yeah. Alright, so let's see this. The ADTH box just killed the broadcaster's DRM arguments, ATSC 3.0.
Hey everybody, it's Lon Seidman. We are back with another ATSC 3.0 update. The filing period for the FCC's current docket on the transition to this new over-the-air television technology has ended. All of the big players got their comments in over the last couple of days, and I've been going through all of it. And in the course of that, I went upstairs to take a look at my ADTH TV tuner, and what do you know? It has stopped working and won't tune encrypted channels. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, what's happening here in the U.S. is that there is a transition in the works to go from the current TV technology that works over the air called ATSC 1.0 to a new technology called ATSC 3.0. That transition would have been great for everybody except for the fact that broadcasters want to encrypt the signals, which has dramatically limited consumer choice, and you'll see how bad those choices are here in a minute. And it's also, of course, made television watching much more complex and more restrictive.
I really think there's no reason why any over-the-air signals for TV and radio that are supposed to be used by the masses should have any encryption. There's really no reason for it to be encrypted.
And we have been leading a fight here, both on this channel and through the Antenna Man's channel, to let the FCC know that these changes are not good changes for consumers and that they should ban the use of encryption over the public airwaves. And now we've got a lot more reasons to have that ban go into effect. So let's get to it. Now, before we jump into things, I do want to let you know that this video is being sponsored by all of you. That includes everyone who watches and subscribes to this channel on a regular basis, along with those of you who have contributed to the channel, either through my donor box page at lon.tv/support, through Patreon, through the YouTube membership program, or through Floatplane. I also have been getting some nice super thanks from all of you, and that is appreciated as well. And of course, we've got the merch store that you can find on the shelf down below. I want to thank everyone for their ongoing support of the channel. It keeps the lights on around here and does help us continue the advocacy that we are doing here to try to end encryption forever. So why don't we jump into the topic here and see what is going on. So initially, I started looking through all of the filings that came into the FCC this week to see what everyone's saying. And one of those filings came in from ADTH, a maker of set-top boxes, who in my opinion is complicit in this effort to encrypt the public airwaves, a very anti-consumer thing. Their products aren't great, to be honest. I've reviewed them all. You can see them in the video description. And here's what they had to say. They strongly support the transition to ATSC 3.0. They also reiterate that there's no fundamental technical barriers preventing the availability of consumer devices capable of receiving broadcasts, including devices supporting A3SA compliant content protection technologies such as digital rights management, DRM. Secure reception and protected distribution are well understood and routinely implemented in modern consumer electronics. I don't think so. The remaining challenge is regulatory uncertainty around the timing of the transition. However, when I booted their box up the other day, their second generation TV tuning box that claims it can watch encrypted channels without the internet, I was getting content protection messages again. And I could not get my DRM protected channels to work. I did a couple of YouTube shorts about this the other day. You can see them running in the background here. And anytime I tried to switch to one of my encrypted...
So you need Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection, basically an internet connection, to your over-the-air TV in order to watch that TV channel. At that point, what the fuck is the point of having a over-the-air TV anyway? The whole point is it's over the air. That makes no sense to me. Like, that sounds like streaming with extra steps.
Channels, I was getting this error message despite the fact the box says this box should work without the internet. I then decided to do a factory reset of the box. I plugged the internet back into it, and now I am stuck in a boot loop where it does its initial channel scan, it reboots, and then does the scan again. I can't get the device to work again, even though I've got it plugged into the internet. It's just refusing to come back up. I tried to disconnect the internet and see if that might fix it, but no, the box is stuck in a boot loop now, and I cannot get it to tune anything. And I should add that I am in the midst of a 2-day snowstorm here where we got over a foot of snow. It wasn't all that life-threatening for us here in Connecticut. We're used to this sort of thing, but still, you were not able to get weather information on encrypted channels because this box is not working. And apparently,
traditional TV companies are moving more towards video over the internet. Oh, I understand that, but the problem is you need to make sure that there are certain comms that can exist in case the internet does go down, because it will go down at times. That's partially why I have a ham radio, which can even tune into AM, FM, because AM can go, like, think about it in a disaster situation. You have a hurricane coming in through, knocks out all the infrastructure. An AM radio can cover hundreds of miles, potentially. And over-the-air TV can also be able to do the same thing if you're needing to broadcast emergency information, things like that. Now, I know a lot of people don't use that, but it should be a feature that everyone has in case of emergency, because the internet and cable TV can and will go down. Here in Norway, we use DAB. DAB! What is that? Chief, did you not hear that he just said the news is encrypted by the DRM, so no internet, no news? That's my point. He said he couldn't access PBS. He couldn't access public broadcast service. With encryption, it's not so public, is it now? Basically, ADTH is a box of junk. Well, yeah, that's what he said. Have you taken any SANS training certs? No, I've not. They're kind of expensive, and none of my jobs have ever wanted to pay for it. What's the point of DRM? To, give the content provider companies the warm fuzzies that people aren't going to steal their content. That's it. That's it. It's a whole anti-piracy measure that ends up biting people in the ass. It shoots them in the foot.
I am not the
Oh. DAB is a digital radio standard used to broadcast radio stations in stereo crystal clear sound quality without the static or interference of traditional FM/AM radio. It allows for more stations to be broadcast efficiently via a single multiplex, often featuring station names rather than just frequencies. Oh. Yeah, I think we have some stuff like that. I'm not entirely sure. That's illegal because the news is meant to be unencrypted. The law was by the FCC. Yeah. Well, do you think they're going to really enforce that in this administration? I wouldn't put my faith in it. To be fair, what's his face? That overturned the net neutrality thing. Wasn't that great either? Let citizens arrest the FCC. Yes, citizens arrest the FCC. Take back our airwaves and our spectrums. All right. I believe the reason why people piracy is due to the cost of streaming services. Pretty much, that's what it is. It's an access issue. They've actually proven this many times because game studios that have very expensive video games tend to get pirated a lot. Indie studios that tend to have their video games at a reasonable price don't get pirated. In fact, you often get shunned for trying to pirate an indie game. Like, what was it? Hollow Knight Silk Song. There were many cases of people like, hey, where can I download the pirated version of this game? And people are like, just pay the game. It's like $10. FM/AM doesn't work here in Norway. We switched to DAB a long time ago. Whole world be dabbing. You pay for streaming service that will take a show that you want, and the only reason you pay... Yeah, like, there's been incidents where, you go on, what is it, Netflix, you'll find a few seasons of one episode, then you have to go to Peacock for another, or Hulu for another. It's really janky. Like, the honest truth is I used to be a proponent of, just buy the streaming service, be done with it. But now we're starting to go backwards where we are having to pirate to be able to have access to content because it's too inconvenient. The convenience of streaming services has now become inconvenient. Like, will I pay for Crunchyroll? Absolutely. I'm watching One Piece through it. I'm at episode 957 right now. Only 200 away. I'll watch it through there. But for a long time, anime watchers will tell you our main source of getting anime was pirating it because there was no legal alternative for it. I bought Terraria for friends who couldn't afford it. Yeah. Young Sheldon's on Netflix with The Big Bang Theory is now on HBO Max and our old-ass Android TV. Yeah. Many episodes are missing on many streaming. You have to find them elsewhere. Oh, yeah, your TV doesn't do Chromecast that well. Yeah.
Only one experiencing this. There are folks on Reddit and in the AVS forum who also saw their boxes stop working over the last couple of days. I'm not sure if this is something that's changed with the encryption certificates coming from the broadcasters in my market, but this problem is not just a Connecticut problem. It appears to be happening in many places across the country. I even heard from one viewer whose box would not work when it was connected to the internet, but did work when he disconnected it.
Wait, what?
So clearly, this A3SA security regime is still not functional, and yet all of these broadcast groups are trying to force the FCC into having a transition right now with encryption. So let's take a look and see what the A3SA filed with the FCC as my box here was falling apart. And what they told the FCC is that they conduct extensive monitoring of the market and have seen no evidence of approved devices not working with encryption. I can't
You sit on a throne of lies, ADTH!
believe they're actually saying this. You can go into the playlist down below and see all the problems that I have had. Tyler the Antenna Man has documented a lot of other issues that people had with their certified equipment. It does not work reliably because this kind of stuff, like I just experienced here, happens all the time due to the complexity of this technology. They go further to say that they built these systems to work for everyone, whether or not their television is internet connected. Meanwhile, we had a device that supposedly could work without being internet connected, and did in my initial testing, and a month later it stops working without an internet connection, and in fact just becomes a big old brick upstairs right now for me. And they then went on to say that any reports to the contrary, they kind of contradict themselves here, have generally been fixed with firmware updates. But how do you install a firmware update? Through the internet. And again, the lunacy here of having to use the internet to watch over-the-air television just doesn't make any sense to me, adds cost and complexity as we're seeing here, and really it just doesn't work reliably enough to have this be the standard of the land here. They then go on to say that the A3SA is a neutral standards-based administrator. This was in response to the FCC asking who's in control of this standard that impacts people's ability to tune into the public airwaves. Typically, regulation
it basically is an IPTV
under
service
the
with extra
auspices
steps
of the Federal Communications Commission. But here we have a private regulator who has opaque rules that are under NDA and not accessible to the public. And apparently the FCC doesn't have access to these rules either, which is why they were asking about them in their most recent filing. But I want to go back to this notion that the A3SA considers
What this boils down to is, trust me, bro.
itself a neutral standards-based administrator. They are anything but. They are picking winners and losers in this market, and they're also going after companies they don't like. Case in point, back in July, the members of the A3SA hired the very same law firm that filed this filing with the FCC this week. And in that filing, they went after Silicon Dust, the makers of the HD Home Run, who have been denied access to the encryption approvals so that their product can work with the new standard. They don't like the way this product works because it is more open. You can basically tune into television in your home with any device.
I've been looking
with a
at getting an
screen,
HD Home
and
Run.
the A3SA wants to ensure that everything is locked down, and they've made it very difficult for most gateway manufacturers to do that, and you can't watch TV right now, at least encrypted TV, on anything but an Android device that has been blessed by this regime here. And if we go back to this July filing, we can see how the A3SA members here are far from neutral arbiters, because in this filing they claim that the reason the HD Home Run device is not being approved is because of a Huawei chip that is inside of it, and that they cannot approve any device with one of these Huawei chips inside per the government's mandates. However, the chip they're using is not part of that mandate. And meanwhile, they did approve a device from GT Media that also has a chip that's on the ban list, yet that box
Sit on your throne of lies.
They are picking winners and losers here. Now, another company that's been complicit in the encryption of the public airwaves is the Zapper Box makers. And Zapperbox, like ADTH, filed documents with the FCC in support of encrypting your public airwaves. Think twice about giving either of these companies money, in my opinion, because they are trying to reduce consumer choice and make more money for themselves. And here they say they've been working with the A3SA since 2022, again showing how the A3SA is picking winners and losers. Additionally, they compare the A3SA to Cable Labs, which is the organization that sets standards for the encryption of cable television. That's a whole nother story, but it's not.
Cable encryption is totally different, because when you're watching cable TV, you're paying for a service and they bring you the set-top boxes. This, you're paying for your own set-top box to be able to watch over-the-air TV, and it's not working. It's one thing when it's a company's responsibility and their infrastructure, as long as they're maintaining it. It's another when you're relying on people to have to buy their own hardware, and your own fuck-ups are keeping it from working.
Apt comparison, because the cable TV industry is a subscription industry. Yes, there are some FCC regulations around
like
it,
I was saying,
but it is not the public airwaves. The public TV sector is an entirely different regulatory regime, and it is not a good comparison here between something that put encryption on a private subscription service versus something that is trying to encrypt and restrict access to the public airwaves. And in regards to how long it's been taking to get even a basic functional gateway DVR to work with this new encryption technology, Zapperbox offered up another lousy defense of their friends at the A3SA. They're saying it's important to note that the ATSC 1.0 digital tuner mandate was issued in 2002, yet the first ATSC DVR was introduced by TiVo 4 years later in 2006. That is not true. There were products offering DVR capabilities much earlier than that. I found one example here of Access DTV Digital Media's receiver product.
The difference is that TiVo popularized the DVR concept. Before, we used to make things like, let me find it, hold on. Back in the days, before TiVo was really popular, this was really our main solution. It's called Myth TV. It still exists. It's a Linux-based set DVR you could build. You could build your own DVR, and you used to be able to get, well, you still can, tuner cards and all of that stuff. And, you know, you can actually, you know, watch TV, record it and everything. But you'd have to make this. TiVo made it a lot easier. That's all it was. And then shortly after TiVo became popular, a lot of cable companies started offering their own DVR. Sometimes they were TiVo. And I remember TiVo was like so early on. The original TiVo that my family had, we had to connect to a phone line to get its firmware and all that stuff updated. This was before like Wi-Fi was really popularized. DVR is about the people's ability to record stuff without subscription services. This is about people's ability to watch TV without a subscription service. DVR is just another component of this discussion.
That was available in 2001. And the reason why these products came out so early was that there was a market because there was no restrictions on people developing products. Not all of them were successful, but there were ATSC 1.0 compatible DVRs available much earlier than 2006. So now let's dive into what the A3SA has to say about
tuner cards
why
are
they
definitely
think
fun
this
to play with.
encryption is necessary. They told the FCC that piracy is costing them 30 to 70
I told you it was about
billion
piracy.
a year in annual losses. And they point to an article here, that's what that footnote is, from The Wrap, which is from January of 2024.
Oh no! The poor TV stations and TV broadcasting networks. They're not getting all the money. The whole argument about piracy being the reason for why they're doing all these crackdowns doesn't make sense. If you provide the service well enough. But you're talking about over-the-air TV. So how is there a piracy issue if you're using an antenna to grab things over the air? How is it a piracy issue? Like what? Maybe the occasions where back in the day you used to download things off the Pirate Bay and everything, where it was a TV show somebody obviously grabbed off of their myth box or something like that and then put onto the Pirate Bay after editing out the commercials. Oh, is that the issue? You're not getting your commercial time? Like, I don't really buy this argument that they have that it's like piracy. It's not like you're pirating a movie that, you know, like DVD and all that stuff. You're over-the-air TV. You're putting this broadcast out for free. And people are just using tuner boxes to tune in. It's not the same thing as cable TV, where they want you to pay a subscription. They have an entire infrastructure. They are physically bringing cable to your house. And that I understand there being encryption, but they're also providing the hardware. Again, you're providing your own hardware. You're paying for this.
However, the article is talking about streamers, not broadcasters.
Oh!
And they refer to a case of Bill Omar Carrasquillo of Philadelphia, who was earning $1.5 million a month with an illegal IPTV service. But when I dug into the case, I discovered that he wasn't actually rebroadcasting signals from over the air. He was actually taking encrypted signals from Comcast, Verizon, and DirecTV. So the question here is, who is being inconvenienced by this DRM? Clearly the pirates are not being inconvenienced by encryption, so much so that one of these pirates referenced in their own article was stealing the content from his encrypted cable provider versus the free content he could have received over the air on the currently unencrypted ATSC 1.0 signal. Yet consumers are being dramatically inconvenienced, not being able to watch television on the devices that they can currently on now, and of course having restrictions on recording and other things. And the A3SA here goes on to say that they are going to lose sports leagues and other premium content if they don't have encryption. But meanwhile, if we
the NFL's not going to gouge us money because of our over-the-air TV license. Go after yourselves.
look at all these recent broadcast deals, that is not the case. The NFL, for example, has set media distribution agreements through 2033 with no assurance of encryption. That includes CBS getting a bunch of games, Fox and NBC here, and of course the Super Bowl will continue to be broadcast on over-the-air television at least through 2033.
What?
And that, of course, is the biggest and most premium sporting event of the year. And they are holding on to that with no end in sight. And Major League Baseball will still be on broadcast with their premium events. Netflix is getting some stuff, but not the big stuff. So, for example, NBC will have the All-Star Week and the Major League Baseball Draft, a lot of premium stuff still on broadcast. The NBA signed an 11-year agreement through 2036 with ABC, owned by Walt Disney, NBC Universal, and Amazon Prime. However, the Amazon content is being produced by NBC, like we talked about a few weeks ago. And of note here, ABC will remain the exclusive home of the NBA Finals, which it has broadcast since 2003. But NBC will be doing at least 100 games this year as well. Again, most of those showing up on broadcast and not on streaming. NASCAR,
only 100 games, fam.
NBC, Amazon, and Discovery. Again, most of this stuff ending up on broadcast on Fox and NBC Sports. And of course, you got the Big Ten with a
I swear, they probably had ChatGPT write their document to give their defense.
NBC. So if these guys are losing deals, it doesn't look like they're losing the premium stuff here, because all of the big games are still going to be on broadcast.
They don't seem to be worried about piracy.
The ADTH filing, they too offered this lame argument to the FCC, again showing how coordinated they are with the A3SA encryption regime. So now let's take a look at our fair use rights to record things in the home. This was another thing that the FCC asked about in their filing. Now, there was a court case that won from the 80s which allowed consumers to record over-the-air content on their VCRs. That has been essentially the law of the land ever since. And the FCC was wondering, should they affirm this in regulation, because with encryption, you would actually break the law if you circumvented encryption to record something in the home. And A3SA is opposing affirming your fair use rights as part of FCC's rules. They say they have rules already in place that guarantee our ability to record things in the home and do with it as we please. However, they keep referring to rules that have a major caveat, which is their broadcast encoding rules that only apply to broadcasts that are simulcasted with the current ATSC 1.0 broadcasts.
Let me get this straight. They're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. You'll have no issues with it. Doesn't allow you to record your own content. Breaks your own boxes that you're paying for.
That's as far as these rules go. So if the simulcast requirement goes away, which is what they're asking for, these rules no longer apply. And the only
you will own nothing and be happy
rules remaining in place comes from broadcasters who have a fiduciary incentive not to allow you to do what you want in your own home. So I don't think this amounts to much of anything. Now, another issue we've been tracking here on the channel is the fact that the only devices that can decrypt the content right now are Android devices, because the broadcasters chose Google's Widevine for their encryption technology. That means devices like Apple TVs and Rokus currently are not able to decrypt content. ATSA here says that there's spectral inefficiency in having to broadcast 3 separate streams, each with their own encryption regime.
Oh no, the poor broadcasting companies! We have to broadcast things in 3 different ways so that people can have access over the air. The horror!
Now they're saying they're going to adopt something different, which will allow multiple encryption technologies to work over a single broadcast. But this is what we hear all the time. There's always something new that we're going to do that's going to make things better, but it never materializes. They were talking about doing inexpensive boxes 3 years ago, and that never came to fruition, and now they're trying again. And they're just saying, trust us, let us have all this control, and we're just going to make it work. But meanwhile, they've had several years now to make things work, and my cheap box upstairs still can't decrypt over-the-air signals reliably without an internet connection, so I don't put a lot of stock in this. And then the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, says the quiet part out loud, that all of this is really about protecting their core business model of broadcast and television retransmission fees.
There it is!
This, of course, is what you pay to your...
It's boo-foo all over again. Buy us! Fuck you! Boo-foo!
Streaming provider and to your cable provider should you want to receive your broadcast through a subscription service. And these prices have been skyrocketing. So a few months ago, I did a story here on the channel about what's happening in my neck of the woods. My local broadcast TV fee on Comcast here in Connecticut is now $48.30 a month. It is ridiculously expensive.
That's like the cost of one of those TV set-top boxes in like 3 or 4 months. This is exactly the reason why I've been unplugging and everything. And now I'm paying like so much in like streaming services. But I've been wanting to get one of those HD home runs, but this ATSC 3.0 bullshit is bothering me. Like, I want to wait until this shit gets ironed out before I start doing an HD home run, put that in my rack, and then have that go to all my Roku sticks or whatever.
Compare that to $8 a month when I looked at this back in 2018.
Good God!
It is absurd, and this is what they're trying to protect, and making it as inconvenient to the consumer as possible, they think might push you back to a streaming or cable provider where they can start collecting those fees again. That's what this is all about, and the NAB finally admitted it here on the docket.
It'll get more of us to pirate, if anything.
Is apparently there is no restriction to alternatives to the A3SA. So while right now we only have one encryption standard, there could be 20 of them tomorrow because the standard doesn't restrict anything here.
Oh,
and that is going to get even more confusing to consumers should another encryption standard come out and a bunch of broadcasters adopt that one versus the one that the A3SA, which is basically made up of the biggest broadcasters in the country, is currently pushing. So this has got really a nice recipe for chaos here, especially on the consumer side. And I think it's time for the FCC
to
bring all of this in. Just eliminate the encryption. It doesn't work over broadcast. It's not compatible with what the whole idea of the
We don't need encrypted over-the-air TV.
Here. And if these folks want to encrypt their content, let them do it on a premium service and allow somebody else to make use of that spectrum. Remember, they are getting this spectrum for free. They never had to pay for it. I can't start a TV station tomorrow. If I did, I'd go to jail. They have rights that I don't have. And I think it's time that the FCC just ends all of it. This will solve the adoption issue. It'll dramatically bring down the cost of these tuners, and consumers will not have the complexity that we're seeing here when stuff works one day and doesn't work the next. So I've had enough. I'm sure you've all had enough too. I'm going to file a response on the FCC docket because we do have 30 days now to respond to everything else that's up there. And I've got a lot of other stuff to share with you from the docket, which we'll cover in a future episode. That's going to do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
That's a bunch of bullshit. Okay, let's see. Next video. Vampire has Astro Sam, never heard of this creator before, building a brain computer interface in my garage. That doesn't sound dystopian at all!
The world we live in is one of constant innovation, progression of technology, and blurring the lines between the real and digital world. For decades, humans have advanced the interfaces with which we interact and observe. Keyboards, mice, touchscreen, incandescent, CRT, LED, VR. But our abilities are limited by the methods we use, our hands and muscle movements for inputs, and our eyes, ears, and other senses for observation. In this age, that is the point of stagnation.
A lot of stock footage.
There's only one next step that will propel humanity into the future, and that is a direct interface with the brain.
Did they use the Ghost in the... That's Ghost in the Shell, I think, with that little snippet there. Hold on.
That will propel humanity into the future.
I'm pretty sure that's Ghost in the Shell. One of my all-time favorite animes.
And that is a direct interface with the brain. Some of the first attempts at this were simple and non-invasive electrodes to sense and record brain signals through the skull and skin, called an electroencephalogram, or EEG for short. Although, as you may guess, this method is generally inaccurate and not particularly useful for the applications we are interested in. Although, if you are interested in experimenting with your own brain-computer interface, it is still the easiest method. EEG devices are non-invasive. This means that they passively use electrodes which sense brain activity from outside of the skull.
Right.
It is clear this is not good enough. Invasive methods have already long been researched and tested within animals and now even humans. The method we will be talking about today is the microelectrode array. Composed of a grid of electrodes, it is surgically implanted in the brain, with some of the better systems such as Neuralink connecting each electrode to specific neuron groups, though this is not...
Just gonna jack you right into the system! Scene Matrix, gonna get that port, plug it right into your brain. Okay, maybe not really, but that's what I feel like.
Particularly necessary. This essentially allows for real-time sensing of many extremely specific areas of the brain, making it far easier to control things digitally. This method also opens up a new ability. That is, the possibility of not just sensing, but also creating electrical signals with which we can input data directly into the brain. Not only could this be used for general information, it could also re-enable or add new senses, such as vision or sense of touch with prosthetics. Past systems have been large and conspicuous. It has also largely been an issue deciding how the computation should be allocated. In years when data processing was difficult, even by a large computer, massive cables were utilized so that every connection could connect to the computer in parallel. Systems like Neuralink have advanced to the point where much of the data processing occurs inside the device itself. This is by far the most expensive option though, as they utilize completely custom silicon chips with advanced machine learning algorithms. Today I will not be creating my own silicon, unfortunately. Maybe in the next video, but in this one we will be creating custom PCBs, firmware, and allow for the creation of an entire technological ecosystem, infinitely expandable by the open source community. Starting off, let's identify some dimensional constraints. As stated before,
high quality there, bud. Just gonna have a black screen called black screen. Because I didn't know it was a black screen. I had to be told it.
Be quite small. The back of the skull, near where the spine connects, is the thickest part on average, so ideally that is where it should be implanted. This would allow for the device to have as much hardware as possible,
no, that's the back of my skull,
still remaining in the same general size footprint your head already does. I believe it is also quite important to be able to fully remove the device without any form of surgery, just a simple screwdriver, to allow for extremely simple maintenance and installing custom expansions.
Is he literally giving us the answer to say, do you have a few screws loose in your head? Oh yeah, could you tighten them for me? I'm sorry, it was right there. Don't tell me you weren't thinking it too.
So I decided I would make it a circular shape, about 20 millimeters in diameter. Now it would be essentially impossible to do anything with that scale, so it is actually a stacked design, making use of that depth of the skull. Each layer can be connected by spring pins to allow for electrical contacts and data transfer between layers. Another important constraint is that I want any connector to the device to be easy to connect without looking, durable, waterproof, and compatible with a current standard. While it does have its own shortcomings, I've always
I do not want to get this shit installed in me.
It allows one to easily plug a cable in at any orientation and can rotate freely. It also has a number of siblings of different sizes and standards, but it is usually used for analog signals. It was originally invented for phone switchboards in the late 19th century, but is now most commonly used for headphones and audio equipment. It would not be applicable to use for a brain-computer interface application though, for a number of reasons. The first is that it is too long, even with the shortest being about 1 centimeter in length. We're putting the device on the back of the head, so we do have roughly this depth to work with, but we have other issues as well. If the connector itself fails by breaking, it does so not safely. Those of you who have had a headphone connector break off inside a device would know, it is difficult to remove or replace. So instead of making our connector have pads around a cylinder, we can flatten them, creating a circular connector. This way, all of the connections happen at the surface, and the connector can freely rotate. The cable side will just be a flat PCB for simplicity, and the device itself will have a spring connector connecting.
Okay, you know what I feel like he's going to be recommending? Have y'all seen the movie The Matrix? We're just going to be jacking in. That's what I think he's going to be going towards. Maybe not, but that's what it feels like!
Each of the pads, with a single pogo pin for power in the center. I decided to make this compatible with USB, so it contains 4 total connections, for ground, power, data plus, and data minus. This will make connecting to computers and accessories easy, yes, but it will also allow
USB. Hey, can you charge my phone? Plugs in the back ahead. I have a portable battery!
expansions by treating them as USB devices. Working backwards from the cable, it will connect to the device's PCB stack through a placeholder riser. This is a layer that just increases the height of the stack, so that in the future you can swap in an expansion device. After that, it connects to the main board of the device. The purpose of this board is to handle all inputs, accessories, USB devices, and read the BCI data. I use an Atmega32U2 microcontroller for this purpose because of its built-in USB support, but ideally this role should be delegated to a more powerful processor in the future. The 32U2 is a smaller and slightly less capable little sibling to the Atmega32U4, which is used for things such as the Arduino Pro Micro.
Jacking in and not off.
That this is the last layer to use USB. This is because the next parts not only require more data pins, and it would be a waste of time and space to add another USB chip, but it also is quite an essential component, so really should not require separation beyond this point unless damaged or an upgrade is needed. This may change in the future as well, just to allow more modularity anyway. But currently these connections I've decided to be completely hand soldered. This video is made possible by JLC PCB. They provide easy, affordable, and reliable PCB and PCBA solutions, empowering electronics engineers to develop projects efficiently. JLC PCB features a number of services from PCB manufacturing to plastic and metal 3D printing and CNC machining. I've used them for a number of years and have always been impressed by both the quality and accuracy in the parts I receive, all for low cost. Simply upload your files, get an instant quote, and receive your parts a week later. And get $30 off with a coupon and enjoy top quality 6-layer PCBs. Try JLC PCB today and get 1 through 8 layered PCBs made for just $2 with turnaround in just 24 hours. Click the link in the description below. The main board, and all of the other boards for that matter, only use surface-mounted components. This is without question for an application of this scale, but some of the parts or their connections are so small they're difficult to see with the naked eye.
It's just hard to justify getting that installed in my head. I'm sorry, I love Ghost in the Shell. I love a bunch of these animes. I just don't think I could do it myself.
As such, it took a number of attempts and resoldering after using the solder mask to get each part to a working state. That is also the reason much of this footage is actually filmed through a digital microscope from my university, which was invaluable. This project is reaching a scale where it is likely more economical and time effective to have all or most components soldered by a pick-and-place machine where the PCBs are fabricated at JLC PCB. At this point, we want to program the microcontroller. I left pads on the back of the PCB for programming with ICSP. It is possible to just press the pins of the programmer against these pads, but it is easier and probably safer for the microcontroller to just solder a temporary header. I used a programmer called USB ASP, which made the process of uploading quite easy using AVRDude. I utilized a library called Lufa to communicate over USB, and edited the example serial demo written in C to send data. I also need to change values in the
My brain runs on
specifying
C.
that I am using a 16 MHz external clock, and that I'm using the Atmega32U2. I used this command to upload, and it should now be working. Before I can test if everything is functional, I need to make the cable.
Hold up. That was a weird combo. Like, I noticed on one segment he was using PowerShell, and the next he's using Linux for it. Pick an environment and stick with it, my man.
I used a sacrificial USB-A cable, spliced the end, and passed it through a 3D printed connector end I designed. Then I soldered it to the circular male PCB and tightened the screws to hold it in place. But after connecting everything, all I got was an error in Windows about the USB device malfunctioning. I spent many hours looking at the PCB under the microscope, trying to find bad solder joints, resoldering components,
You
checking
need flux
values,
on there, my
and even
dude.
completely replacing the microcontroller. Despite any soldering issues, the main
Despite any... It looks like you needed to flux that a little bit more. I could be mistaken, because, like, that wire over there is just kind of sitting on top. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, the solder should be kind of enveloping it. Like, that's a good solder joint over there. That's a good solder joint over there.
even completely replacing the microcontroller.
Like, look at what he's
Despite
doing.
any soldering issues,
Despite any soldering issues, like, I see a soldering issue.
even completely
Like,
replacing the microcontroller. Despite any soldering
look at that. Despite any soldering issues. Dude, you are not, like, Chat. I know many of y'all tinker with soldering and all that. This does not look like a good solder job here. I'm just being honest. It looks like he needed a little bit more flux, cleaning that off a little bit more, because, like this, right here, this one, this connection right here in the center, that looks like a good solder connection. Shit, fucked. Actually, no, shit, fucked. Okay?
issues, the main problem I encountered was staring me in the face the whole time. I'd somehow accidentally mixed up my data plus and data minus pins on the motherboard.
You also had to have it nasty over there, like it looks like he's kind of bridging over there. Ow.
So USB was obviously not working. Luckily though, this did not require reordering the PCBs, as I could just swap around the connections on the custom USB cable I made. Part 2. Data. Data powers the modern
It's not, trust me, like that. It glitches a lot with the power. What?
world. Data transfer. Messenger, horse, car, train, telegraph, phone, internet, fiber optic. USB is a serial communication protocol which succeeded its predecessors of yesteryear, the serial and parallel ports. It utilizes 4 wires: ground, power, data plus, and data minus. The data cables allow back and forth communication from one device to another. A mind link becomes a peripheral to a computer, your computer a coprocessor to your brain. Yes, this method is simple for data transfer and expansions, but it has downsides. Waterproofing would be nearly impossible. It also leaves much to be desired in terms of security, since the main controller to the device in your brain is directly exposed and could be damaged or reprogrammed too easily. So there's another type of connector to be used. This one is also not standardized, but my own design. It utilizes magnets on the connector end, which is connected to ground, with a center spring pin either for 5 volts, data plus, or data minus.
Okay.
Yes, this cable is also somewhat compatible with USB, but with 3 identical connectors, each for a different purpose, just wiring it directly to a computer would result in a short circuit or other unexpected behavior 5 out of 6 times. So the way it functions is actually by making each connection not have a defined purpose until all wires are connected. After which the mind link will negotiate what wires are connected to which connector and switch accordingly. And because these connectors utilize magnets, it is easy to connect and disconnect as needed. They are also naturally waterproof because the entire connector is exposed at the surface and it waits for a signal from the computer before sending any amount of voltage through the connections.
Okay.
At this point, I have yet to mention how the mind link interfaces with the brain. While it is
It's really annoying me that every time he has a black screen, it just says black screen. Like, dude, I don't even do that with my videos. Like, just put something in between.
as yet impossible to surgically implant custom brain hardware while in my garage, we can assume everything on the neural interface is ideal. For this version, I set the neural matrix size to have 32 electrodes. This number was relatively arbitrary and could be anything. We assume everything on the brain side is taken care of already, and all of the electrodes are connected to a base plate PCB. Now on the MindLink side, we have a new layer. This will have spring pogo pins to match the pads on the brain baseplate.
Okay.
Of course, at this point, it is probably clear that the Amiga32 microcontroller would not have enough pins to properly accept all 32 of these inputs. To do
You know what's funny? I just realized, if you look at his design, I feel like he realized that it was kind of looking like a swastika, and then arbitrarily, just at the top, made it a T. He's like, oh, that looked a little too much like a swastika.
controller would not have enough pins to properly accept all 32 of these inputs. To do this, 4 multiplexers will be placed on the other side of the same PCB, each selecting between 8 of the neuron matrix's pins. There's now not much space remaining on this layer, so to continue we should add another and expose the required pins. Another multiplexer will be used to select between the outputs of the first 4 multiplexers. At this point it would require 7 pins to address the individual pins in the matrix, and 1 pin for the output. Even this is too much for the microcontroller, although there does exist an easier method. Instead of addressing from the microcontroller, we will offload that duty to a counter IC. Each time we wish to see the output of a neural electrode, we send a pulse to increment the counter by 1, selecting the next pin with the multiplexers. It is now impossible to know which exact pin is selected, so another connection can be used to send a reset pulse to sync. Now there are a total of 3 connections to the microcontroller: the analog input, the counter incrementer, and the counter reset. It is also important to mention that on the second board, there is an op-amp to amplify the voltage to 5 volts from the incoming neuron, since they typically send pulses of only about 0.15 volts. Now each electrode can have its value read by the microcontroller and sent to any device. I use processing to create this visualizer. In a full application, this data would also be processed with the machine learning model, so the activity could be understood and actually used. I then 3D printed this proof of concept cover and mounted the MindLink. As you can see, it conforms to the shape of the skull, and has many screw holes for mounting and holding peripherals. The MindLink is also completely flush with the surface, so there are no protruding pieces. And now, taking a look at the entire thing, it is constructed primarily out of plastic. This is wrong.
Part 3.
Okay.
A tooth is pulled. A steel replacement is installed. The material begins to leach into the surrounding flesh and bone.
Right.
The immune system responds to the medical implant by attacking it. Inflammation, irritation, eventual removal. Most
That's why you
materials
need
humans know are
biocompatible
not
materials.
biocompatible,
Yay!
though there are a few, such as titanium or zirconium oxide ceramic, which are
Yeah. I have a background in like dental technologies. Not a dentist, just worked on them. That's why I was like, I know what biocompatible materials are.
completely inert in the human body, having no reactions with tissue and not being attacked by the immune system. Most likely titanium would be the best option for the MindLink. Not only is it easier to manufacture, I can even have it 3D printed for only a few dollars, but it is also more ductile and less likely to shatter in the case of a large impact. Although I'm not trained medically, so it may be the case that I am wrong on each of those points.
Yeah, titanium
Otherwise, a
seems to
ceramic
make more
would
sense.
be much better because it would not block Bluetooth or Wi-Fi signals like titanium.
Well, the issue is that zirconia, which is like a ceramic that you can get, like you can go into a dentist and you can get zirconia implants. You know, when you go to a dentist and you're like, hey, I'm getting a, not a filling, not an implant, crap. Get a root canal, you get, but you know what I'm talking about. You get basically a new tooth made. They're doing it in zirconia, usually with a milling machine there, like a Sirona. It's a company that does dentistry. What is it? The Sodexis, I think it is, or no, that's a software. Anyway, the issue is that material cannot withstand shock, which is generally why in your front teeth you want to go for a PFM, a porcelain fused metal. So it'll use like gold as a buffer. Like one of my teeth has that. But yeah.
And also be non-conductive, so extra shielding would not be necessary. Once the MindLink is implanted, it makes sense to just leave the entire thing exposed. This would allow for very easy access for maintenance or upgrades. But because it is a design that doesn't take up more space than the original skull did, it would technically be possible.
Can you imagine if you have that installed? Hey, I haven't been thinking right lately. Well, have you upgraded your brain firmware lately?
To have skin still over it, though you would still be limited to what haircut you have unless you choose to not plug it in often. So in the future, it would likely be more popular to have removable silicone or plastic covers. The MindLink as it stands is no more than a proof of concept. There is a long road ahead to take it from a stack of PCBs and 3D printed parts to a fully realized and truly seamless brain-computer interface. but I believe that we should go together, that the future brain-computer interfaces should be accessible to everyone through open source, and as customizable as possible. Even if what is eventually adopted is completely different from this, I hope it stands as a basis for future work. Thank you for watching.
We're getting a little too close to Ghost in the Shell, I'm just gonna say. But yeah, interesting. Alright, let's see this next video from Jeff Geerling. 11 Labs just got nuked by open source. That's a quick video. Alright.
Just released Qwen 3 TTS, and 11 Labs has something to be worried about.
So Qwen is actually a really
about...
good LLM. I've actually been using it myself quite a bit. If you notice, this is my local LLM here on the side. Sorry, TikTok people. It's all off screen right now. You can go over to the other platforms that have wide formats. Links in bio. But I've really been liking Qwen. So, like, for example, I'm going to have it explain options trading over here. And it's thinking right now. And this is all on my local LLM. This is all on my local machine using an NVIDIA 5060 Ti. So this is its thinking right now, what it's doing, and then it'll actually give me the answer. Okay, so here's the answer. And this is the 5060 Ti generating it, okay? I'm not using anything in the cloud. This is local to my machine. To prove that point, wait, no. To prove that point, we just did that over there. Okay, so we're gonna pull up over here. See, that's a local address over there. And right over here. Okay, it didn't pull up right there. But yeah. It's because it's in a different session. I have it in a different tab. But anyway, yeah, so I had it explain options trading and everything. I'm using boxes. How do I zoom in, getting a screen size of 1900 by 600? Not sure off the top of my head how you're doing things, but yeah. But yeah, I like Qwen a lot, to the point that I'd like to get a couple of NVIDIA DGX Sparks, connect them over ConnectX 7, and then start using Qwen 235B, and then start doing my own image processing and things like that. That'll be probably an end of the year or next year project, though.
Hear how somebody cloned my voice and used it in tutorial video series, and it sounded pretty good. That was using 11 Labs last year, and they're a little bit better now. And it's very easy to take someone's audio, like you could just take the audio off of this video, upload it to 11 Labs, and clone my voice. A lot of these cloud services are supposed to have safeguards against cloning other people's voices, but you know, those work better and worse. But that's besides the point now, because there is an open source Qwen, which is made by Alibaba Cloud in China. They have released this TTS series of models that you can download and run on almost any kind of system. I can run it on a Raspberry Pi with an external GPU. I can run it on my Mac. I could even run it on my phone if I wanted to. And you just take a recording of someone and you put a transcript in, put those together, and a couple minutes later you can clone someone's voice and make them say anything. This is just using the demo that's hosted on Hugging Face, so this is running on their servers, but it's not that hard to run this on your own. And I'm sure that there's going to be software tools like a Mac OS app or a Windows app that you could just download.
Well, that's not a very large model size, 1.7B. Yeah, you could do that with a lot of different GPUs.
Yourself, but all I did was I typed in these words here, I read them into my computer and recorded this little clip. It's a little scary how easy it is to clone anyone's voice, even my own. My voice is my passport, verify me. And you put in something that you want it to say right here, and you can let it detect your language, and there's a couple model sizes, so you could even run this on a smaller computer. Then, I mean, both of these run on a lot of modern systems.
Yeah.
And you click this button, and after a minute or so, it will spit out something like this. Cloning someone's voice used to take at least a little effort. Now it's even easier, and some people can do it free and offline at home. So obviously
That's a
that's
little
not
bit
the same
scary.
intonation that I have. My vocal range is a lot different,
Right.
and there's little quirks to the way that a real human being talks. And the problem is that for little short snippets, that doesn't really matter. It's good enough with this free model that anybody can run. It's good enough that it can fool you if it's a short phrase, and it's good enough that it will fool a lot of people if they're not familiar with the person. So, if you've never seen one of my videos before and this is the first video you're watching, if I just used this tool and had if I generated it different ways and I tweaked it a little bit, I could generate the audio for an entire video and you probably wouldn't notice. That doesn't make me too happy. Honestly, as somebody whose voice is part of their online presence, that is something that generates revenue for me, the ability to just clone my voice and slap it on anything doesn't get me that excited.
Yeah.
Because so far, I have never used, except for in demonstrating this technology, I've never used a cloned voice in any footage, even for a little pickup or a little one-liner or anything like that. And I don't plan on ever doing that. But I've already seen other people use my voice, and I didn't authorize it. And I'm a little worried that it's getting easier and easier to do these things, and we're going to see more AI slop that actually looks like it's realistic, because now it's easier and quicker to generate people's voices to go behind it, and all you really need to do is rip off some of someone's video, and boom, you have their voice.
Yep. Probably find me, endorsing granny panties or something like that. Who knows? Thanks to this crap. Alright. Doomed to fail. Washington lawmakers don't understand 3D printing. So we've talked about this a little bit. Washington State is effectively trying to ban not only 3D printing with the way they're doing things, but milling, anything creative, really, in terms of all that. Why? Well, we don't want you to possibly 3D print a gun. So you're basically going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're going to kill a lot of innovation with this approach here.
This is my 3D printer. This is my CNC. And this state of Washington House Bill 2321 is just stupid. I don't think they know how things work. Really, I don't think they know how to.
Lawyers don't really contribute much to society in general. Don't get me wrong, I like my lawyer. He's a great dude. He's probably one of the few ones that actually say that. But these lawyers are mostly the ones that go into politics, don't know how the fuck the world works, and then fucks it up for all of us. But, yeah.
Printer works. They don't know how a CNC machine works. They don't get how stupid simple these machines are. They're asking you to basically detect, is this shape I'm feeding to this machine here a firearm shape or not? Not like, is it in the shape of a firearm? Is it in a shape of a component or a piece that could be used in a firearm? So the way these stupid things work is they basically have motors, and they're just given commands to go and turn left or right. That's all they do.
Yep.
Those things then connect to something like this, linear guide rails.
Yep.
It moves stuff around. So you do that, and you end up with some stupid thing that you 3D print. So they're not great. They're not smart things. They're not even freaking computers. They're microcontrollers.
Yeah, really, like, if you look at my Prusa 3D printers, they're all essentially just Arduinos. That's basically what they are. They connect into servos. You feed in XYZ coordinates in G-code. And then it just moves the thing. They're ridiculously stupid, underpowered computers.
Made the same things that your toaster and microwave use to make sure that when you set the toast to 3 out of 10 brownness or whatever, it comes out toasted to that level. Like, it's not smart. It's basically a timer. These things basically take your stupid commands of your G code and say, move here and move here and move here. And that's what they do. These things are dumb. Same thing with the CNC machine.
Yeah.
They're just stupid basic machines. They have no clue what a firearm component is. So, in this bill that's probably written by nice people, it's done in
He's nicer than me. They're written by fucking morons!
a very stupid way. They basically say you have to be able to detect whenever you send something to your 3D printer that is firearm shaped or a component that could be used in a firearm somehow, and then block it. Do you know
And
how
by
hard that
firearm
is?
shaped, it could be a
Do you
squirt
realize
gun.
that these companies are struggling just to make decent machines, let alone be an AI company to determine, is this
Well, calling the
shape
bamboo
potentially
decent, that's a
usable in
stretch.
firearm? Look at all those random shapes that I've printed over the past few years. You use everything from in fact, I'm making a cylinder shape that could be basically taken as a barrel like next week. I have to do it for a client project. I have to go and make a trigger for my door operated light that I'm making. I don't care if they're firearm shaped or you have your own firearm and you're just trying to make components for it. That's your right. We live in freaking America. I mean, we're trying to go and prevent people from doing horrible things with guns, right? I don't think making your 3D printer send every file to the cloud so someone else can inspect it and send back that file back with a code that says this thing is allowed to print it, because that's what it would take. It'd basically take you losing all your privacy, all your ability to make what you want using stupid basic motors, and instead have basically like someone like Google get in the way so that way they can approve your design. So I don't think we want to live in a dystopian future. I don't think these people know how these machines work. I don't think they know what they're asking. So I'm not trying to be mean to them. I'm just trying to say,
I
we live
am.
in America.
You're a
We
moron.
make firearms here. We use CNC machines. That's how they're made. That's how the big boys do it. So, 3D printers, they're nice, but are you going to also block that on CNC machines? Are you now going to go and gain the right of every American from being able just to do what they want? I mean, I thought America's all about you can swing your fist up to the point where it hits someone else's nose. That's what I learned. And apparently they're trying to say it's like thought crime type stuff. If this thing could potentially be used in a thing in the future, no. So I think these are nice people. These legislators have decent ideas.
I think they're morons.
But they're just really, really stupid in how they're going about doing it. To a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And to these people who witnessed horrible tragedies who are legislators, they're trying to legislate their way through it. They're trying to figure out.
The other thing that, needs to be addressed is in all of... Let's look at all of firearm crime collectively. How many of those actually involved a 3D printed firearm? I think I've heard of like one or two. This is not as big an issue as people think it is. This is, morons that are afraid that have never actually talked to someone who has a 3D printer, which tells you how out of touch they are, because I can throw a rock and find several people that do 3D printing, besides myself.
A legal solution. And I just don't think it's a good one, though. I think that these people need to be told why it's bad, why it won't work, and why, as someone who's trying to manufacture things here in America, starting in my garage and working my way up, why that only makes it harder. So if we want to go and stop this thing, and this thing will pass, I'm pretty dang sure.
So far, all the laws that these people pass are them crying for help because they are the ones doing it. So in this case, the guy who wants this law is the one print things they shouldn't. Okay. Yeah, would not surprise me. Good enough for me, but not for thee.
Don't do anything, it's gonna get there. The governor, he wants to get elected again. And this guy who submitted the bill, he looks like he could be a reasonable person. So
he also looks like the type of person that's probably never been punched. Not that I'm threatening to punch him. I'm just saying he looks like that type of person. Because, I think someone should 3D print a Rock'em Sock'em robots and then challenge him to a duel and then punch his Rock'em Sock'em robot in the face. Check his hard drive. Probably find him in the Epstein files. Look. We're equal opportunity haters around this stream, okay? Democrat, Republican, they all suck. Okay, let's not go that far, but he definitely looks like a douche.
talk with him. Let's talk with the governor. Let's see what we can do about this, because if we don't do anything, it's going to pass. I'm an idiot when it comes to civics, so I asked AI, and here's what it came up with. Basically, get all the stakeholders involved, make a formal technical document for why it's a really bad idea, and then just start pushing it forward, pushing it
They're gonna
into
get
that
some
legal
only
process.
maintenance
If this
done
is the
at
game
home,
that they're
but
going
nice.
to play, we got to play them at the
Happy
same
hacking,
game. We're
just
playing the same
boom.
game, right? So if they're going to do legal stuff, we got to do legal stuff. Do I want to? Hell no. I want to play on my brand new machine. I mean, this thing is awesome. I just want to have fun. Instead, I'm worried about them taking away my nice things. So let's do something about it. I don't know how. I'm that technical expert who can say, this is how these things work. Here's what it actually means to me. Do I live in Washington State? No. But you know what's next to Washington? California. It's going to be national.
I'm pretty sure there's a couple of states in between there, bud. What's next to California? Okay, map of USA. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of states in between. Okay, not a couple, but I was right. You got Washington State, Oregon, and then California. So, okay, you don't know civics, and you don't know geography either. That's cool. That's cool. I just wanted to point that out.
Sooner than later. So we got to cut it off where it is. We got to fight them where they're at. Not at stupid posts on the internet. We got to get a coalition. We got to get a team. We got to get something. So I don't know what the answer is, but count me in. I am 100% in.
So I will say this. That is one point that he made that I have been saying for a while. All of you internet performative activists that are going around talking about stupid political things in people's comment sections, you are freaking morons doing it for internet points and internet clout. You are not moving the needle whatsoever. You're making yourself feel better about it. I'm probably one of the few people that I know of, and I tell my chat this all the time. Call your representative. Call your senator. Write them. They if you give them an actual letter, it's more impactful. I've done that. I do that to candidates that I actually want to vote for, where I get their opinions on stuff. I am civically involved. I'm not one of those people that goes around and, just as performative activist, all that. You've heard me call out people coming into my comment sections and just blowing people like up because it's like, dude, I'm not a performative activist. I talk about digital and cyber rights for the most part and privacy rights. Don't come at me about different things because you happen to find out my background and heritage are from a certain place. You're not doing anything here. You're not helping anyone. You're just making yourself feel good. You're just getting internet points that don't fucking matter. Unless you're on Reddit and nobody really cares. Unless you're a Reddit mod, like the guy we watched in that video. But if you do believe in things, understand the civic system. I have said that for the longest time. And I think the system works if you get involved. The problem is, not a lot of you actually get properly involved. I'm not talking about you, chat. You guys in chat, you're probably a bit more involved than the average person. But this rant right here is for anyone else that comes across this video and is watching this segment. And I want you to get thinking, when's the last time you've actually thought about, hey, I don't agree with this policy, then called your representative or written a letter to them? Called your governor, called your senator, your attorney general, whatever, your mayor, anything. That's my point. If you are never done that shit and you're going around bullying people on the internet and trying to get them to say certain things, you are a fucking loser that's wasting time. And you are wasting air. What, you're gonna feel good because you're sitting on a keyboard typing things? No. It's racist to go after someone because of their background. Yeah. Do you know how many times people are like, hey, you're Jewish. What about, conflict in Middle East? And I'm like, dude, we're over here talking about coding. We're over here doing gaming on Linux. We're over here building a project. Like, Do you know, like, chat, you've been in here enough times to see how that happens. And it primarily happens over on TikTok. I will be completely honest about that. TikTok is one of the worst places for performative activism. You think calling me a loser will stop me? That's my fuel. Look. We're not going to kink shame around here. You know, some people, that's their kink, okay? You know? Moving on. I've called my representative, I called them stupid on Reddit. I've called them stupid to their face. Okay, Diddy documentary be like, oh God.
Diddy, this party is crazy! Hell yeah. How you sleep, sleepyhead? And then I woke up next to Diddy. What? My wife and four. I'm hearing you, but I don't want to. And a bottle of baby oil fell out my ass. So I had to go back and investigate. Why? Back already. Last night was fun, huh? How you sleep, sleepyhead? You not
what the fuck?
Believe it. My wife again. For again. But now you know. Nope. My wife. But this time, 2 bottles of baby oil fell out my ass.
What the fuck?
Tell me you ain't go back to investigate? I had to go back to investigate. But this time, I wake up, my swipe, sore, and the wheels hit. but no Diddy this time. That's good. Nah, Diddy was next to me. How you sleep?
What the fuck?
Yeah. But no baby oil? No, right? I don't know. I didn't stand up yet. That motherfucker. I gotta go investigate. Hey, you ever thought like maybe he f***ing you?
What the fuck?
I gotta go investigate.
Diddy documentaries be like, that's so effed up. Dear Lord Harambe, what in the host crispy chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken am I hearing? Yeah. Okay, Cursor is lying to developers. Okay, what's this about?
Another day and another message from our AI overlords telling
Cursor's the integrated developer environment IDE that quite a few people are using, and I remember I roasted somebody for using this because I looked into it, and it was like less capable than Copilot, GitHub Copilot. I mean, it's using the same things, but it costs more.
that software engineers will lose their jobs 6 to 12 months from now.
Thank you.
Well, the Cursor team was done with just talking, and they were going to put that $2.3 billion of VC funding and prove that you no longer need these pesky engineers. They set up an interesting experiment. They let hundreds of AI agents run for a week straight working on a single project. The goal was to build a fully functioning browser from scratch, which is impressive since building a browser that can support all the current modern day web features is insanely complicated. Even Microsoft can't pull it off. So how did this experiment go? Well, there were a few road bumps, let me just say that. At first, they kind of let the agents loose to do whatever they want. They would say, hey, I'm in this file doing this, and then they would lock the file or resource so other agents wouldn't be working on it at the same time. And problems started to instantly arise. Agents would hold locks for too long, sometimes even forgetting to release them. It started to get so bad that 20 agents would do the throughput of 2 to 3, while the others would just wait. The system started to fall apart.
I got nothing on a name. Come on, baby, what's the name?
Agents would fail to hold locks on files that are already working in, or they would lock files again, even though they said, hey, I'm already working in this one. Just the coordination was starting to get completely off. And this is where one of the funniest lines came from this article. With no hierarchy, agents became risk averse. They avoided difficult tasks and made small, safe changes instead. No agent took responsibility for hard problems or end-to-end implementation. This led to work churning for long periods of time without progress. Maybe these agents were thinking exactly like developers because, hey, sometimes in planning, you gotta go for the easy tasks, the easy wins, and leave the hard stuff to the other guy next to you. I'm not gonna lie. But since no progress was being made, the Cursor team went with a different approach. Instead of going with a flat structure where all agents are equal, they decided to split them up into planners and workers. Planners would look through the code base and make tasks for the workers to do. They could also spawn little minions that can make tasks themselves, making the whole process parallel and recursive. While
I mean, it's kind of similar to what I'm doing right now, where you see on my VS Code, sorry TikTok people you don't see, but I have a to-do list over here for the stuff that I'm working through. I'm trying to get some AI features added to some of my own projects, and it's testing right now. Some thinking previews. I'm trying to get Quen and stuff to work in BoonTube Demon. Yeah.
would pick up tasks and focus.
I'm gonna put that off to the side over here. Because I'm gonna monitor that.
Entirely on finishing them. They don't coordinate with other workers or worry about the overall big picture. They just grind on their assigned tasks until it's done, and then they push their changes. At the end, a judge agent would take a look at the work that was done and determine whether to continue or to fire all of his planners and workers and start fresh again. And with that, all experienced developers are having PTSD because the Cursor team just reinvented the corporate hierarchy. Planners are just product owners and judges are just
Oh, so basically you're replacing the coders with an entire corporation of basically proving, yeah, you have little developers over here that can't plan, so you have these guys over here that can't really do the tech work, but plan out the work, but then, of course, they may suck too, so you now have a person above them that can hire or fire them. What the hell? You've just made a software company with extra steps.
And we are the workers droning away at the tasks that were handed to us, hoping we don't get pipped next cycle. Maybe AI isn't so different from us. Maybe AI is just the friends that we made along the way. Well, this structure was left to run for a week straight with no human intervention. At least we assume no human intervention. And it wrote 1 million lines of code through 1,000 files. And remember, they said they used trillions of GPT 5.2 tokens. They never gave a breakdown of input versus output tokens. And let's say this is for only 1 trillion tokens used. This could have cost anywhere from $3 to $5 million just for that week run. So let's see what they were able to produce.
Oh, no.
No, your screen did not break. What you just saw there was a $5 million browser in.
I'm speechless. Like, you could have spent like $3 to $5 million in a week. You could spend that entire year on a coding company and still get further. Holy shit.
Action. In the demo, it looks like it tries to load Apple's website and medium.com. Even though it might look bad, let's give them the benefit of the doubt because browsers are really, really difficult to implement, especially from scratch. So this isn't that bad for a week's worth of work. They were even generous enough to publish it all on GitHub for us to run. But there was a slight problem. If you tried to pull this project and run it yourself, it would not compile. Keep in mind this project was written in Rust, so that means the agents never did a cargo build or a cargo check, because when users did that, tens of errors popped up and hundreds of warnings, which led to some funny replies in the PR. Is there a CI that actually worked? The blog post mentioned something like, it might look like just a screenshot, but blah, blah, blah. Is the screenshot the thing we're supposed to be impressed by? Because for all intents and matters, this project does not contain a functioning web browser by any measurements. And I'm not sure how anyone could have successfully ran this, at least with the code as it is right now.
Give me that money, I'll outsource this and get
investors
$3 million.
Can't read code and don't even know what GitHub is. The computer programmed itself so line go up. Brrr. With this much backlash, the original developer at Cursor running this project had to put out a fix, and some suspect the fix was put in place by him and not done by the agents. That's because the git log for the project is kind of weird. Multiple commits from multiple different accounts, some from the original project founder, while others are from the bot, some are from Ubuntu, and some are from Google Labs, the Jules bot. But that's just hearsay. You don't really know what's going on there. But things didn't get easier for the Cursor team because people started to dive down into the code. It was a mess with no intent behind it at all. And even worse, it looked like the Cursor team was making some false claims. They had claimed that the AI agents had written an HTML parser, CSS parser, implemented JavaScript and CSS selector matching, SVG rendering, all from scratch. But if you take a look at the cargo toml file, which has a list of dependencies for your Rust project, you'd realize that these features weren't coded from scratch and instead were libraries that they had imported from other places. For example, the
fucking kidding me? Hey, yeah, we built the browser from scratch. Imports a bunch of libraries. At least I'm freaking honest with my code over here. I mean, you look at my Pythons, yeah, I have a crap ton of libraries I import. I don't lie about it, though. I just don't want to code all that shit from scratch. Can you blame me? But AI, man.
CSS parser were actually taken from Servo, which is a completely separate open source Rust-based browser. And for their job,
we've talked about Servo, and it's not even production ready. It's like 0.0.1. Not even hyperbole. That is literally, we've talked about this before. Like, I'll pull this up. Servo browser. Okay, so here's Servo. Okay, let's go to the GitHub. Okay, they're on 0.0.4. Still, but my God. That's why I keep saying a lot of, like, I'm not saying AI is bad, inherently. There are great things with it. I run a local LLM server. I use it for quite a few things. It's great. The problem is this bubble and overhyping attitude around AI. That's the problem.
script engine, they used Quick.js, which the maintainer of this project and the person running this experiment said, I do want to briefly note that the JS VM is custom and not Quick.js. And that quickly backfired when users put their JS VM to the test. They ran an ACID-3 test on the browser, which tells you how many web standards it actually meets. For example, let me run it on Firefox. As you can see, it gets a score of 97 out of 100. So how does the Cursor browser score? Well, it couldn't even run the test because the custom JS VM was not able to execute it correctly. And a lot of developers had already suspected this. When they saw that it was a Rust-based browser, they assumed it was just taken from Servo or uses a lot of Servo implementation or has knowledge of Servo's code base, so it starts to just reuse that. But they never suspected that it would just import it straight from their project.
So the reality is, and this is what I keep saying, is that AI can't really have original thought, and it will only work as well as the data that it's trained on. That's why I can at least, like, for my LLMs and all that stuff, I can go over and then, here, let's cd into pfSense. Hold on. Was it? Anyway, but we can see all my little projects in here. Like even, the mobile signature that I use for email, or some of the Florp tweaks that I have in here. These are all things I have to guide it and often have to walk it through. So like even my little site here, so let me see. Where is it? Preview. View. Okay, but anyway, all this stuff over here. Here we go. Show preview. This I had to go through and code it. I mean, I still had to tweak quite a bit myself to make it adaptive and responsive. Okay? When it made an original version, it did not look like this. It looked like a potato. I had to guide it in the right way. It's not going to have original thought.
Team pushed back on some of these claims. Some of the dependencies were not actually used, and some were changed and altered, and no direct code from Servo was used within the project. But I think the Cursor team didn't look through all the code yet because there are strong overlaps in places there shouldn't be. For example, some comments. And I'll be completely honest, I am not a good enough developer to judge how well this browser was implemented. But luckily, there were some people replying that were good enough. Gregory Turson, a contributor and overall architect of Servo, replied to this project. I have explained at length why your fleet of autonomous agents failed miserably at building something that could be seen as a valid POC. One example, your rendering loop does not follow the web specs and makes no sense. The above design document is simply nonsense, typical AI hallucinated BS, detailed critique, and he sent another comment about what critique he said. The actual code is worse. I can only describe it as a tangle of spaghetti. As a browser expert, I can't make much, if anything, of it. In comparison, when I look at code in Ladybird, a project I am not involved in, I can instantly find my way around the code because I know the web specs. So I agree, this isn't just wiring up dependencies, neither is it copied from existing implementations. It's a uniquely bad design that could never support anything resembling a real-world web engine. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think AI could be leveraged to build a web engine, but not by unleashing autonomous agents. You need humans in the loop at all levels of abstraction. The agents should only be used to bang out features, reusing patterns established or vetted by human experts. If you want to do this the right way, get in touch, which is just a great way to toss his ad in there, which I have to toss some respect to. I think Gregory's message puts it best. These AI agents didn't build a browser. They built something that they thought was a browser. They didn't use web standards. They didn't follow conventions. They hallucinated and created a monstrosity that they can barely understand. AI is a powerful and useful tool, but that's what it is. It's a tool, and it's best harnessed by people and humans in the loop who know what they're doing and can guide it, instead of thousands of agents working and toiling away at whatever they think is right. In the end, I think this was a marketing stunt by the Cursor team to justify their crazy $23 billion evaluation for a modified VS Code fork. But hey, I can't blame them. I'm a cheap knockoff, less experienced, worse dev Primogen fork, so game is game. But
yeah. I mean, in terms of VS Code forks, the only other one that I've really had a vote of confidence in is Kiro. I think we talked about that in the past. So Kiro is an IDE that, you can then set up, MCPs and everything inside of there. It actually does a really great job. So here, if I remember, you can set up powers over here. I don't have a project open, but over here it would let you set things up. But yeah, Kiro's the only one so far I've been pretty happy with. I've not been a fan of Cursor. I've played with it, but no. Okay, let's go. Phone repair guru. We got some shorts over here.
AirTags are looking pretty stupid compared to something like this. This costs $40 and it might just be the best one of these I've ever seen. It's way thinner than an AirTag but has more features. This tracker doubles as a business card, and if you scan this QR code, it'll bring up your digital ID. These lines over here are glow in the dark, which probably isn't that useful, but is a cool feature. It works with both Find My and Find Hub for Android, but my favorite feature is the wireless charging. It has 12 months of battery life, and you could just recharge it when it dies. AirTags are looking pretty stupid compared to something like this. This costs $40 and it might just be the best one of these I've ever seen. It's way thinner than an AirTag but has more features. This tracker doubles as a business card, and if you scan this QR code, it'll bring up your digital ID. These lines over here are glow in the dark, which probably isn't that useful.
That's useful to find in the dark.
It's a cool feature. It works with both
AirCard Pro Dual. Just curious. Huh. Oh, you can get 2 of them for like $70. Huh. It's actually a pretty good cost for it. I like this. Do they have it on Amazon, or is it just here? RFID blocker, lattice of category, thinnest 2 credit cards, 14 months runtime. Huh. RFID does not affect the functioning of AirCard. Huh. That is neat. So the wireless charger for it, is it a proprietary thing, or is it a... Google Find Hub app and Apple Find My app. That is nice. Huh. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that. Probably buy it later. Okay, so what is this? This camera is a time machine.
Camera can shoot video in the style of every decade by just turning this wheel. So this is the 1930s, the era of wobbly, grainy, black and white film. The 40s was the era of vivid color expression. It's actually sick how it's got this realistic scratchiness. The 50s mode replicates the early black and white TV broadcasts, complete with scan lines. 1960s has that dreamy but also fuzzy vintage look, influenced by film cameras at the time. The 70s, though, is the decade of the first color TV broadcasts, although the colors are horrendous. 80s has the look and feel of 35mm negative film, basically the most common type of camera film that you might have grown up with. 1990s, the era of the embarrassing home camcorder video. I can feel it all over again. 2000s takes us into the punchier, sharpened world of the digital camera. The 2010s is meant to represent the live streaming era, but I don't vibe with this one. And then the 2020s is just camera. But the craziest bit is every single effect has 10 levels of intensity that you can pick through with this dial. And then when you've taken a clip you like, you can print it. It comes out as a photo that you can scan to see the full video. This camera can...
That's clever. I like that. Interesting. Oh, by the way, I was looking at that website. They also have AirNotch Pro Dual, an Apple and Android Bluetooth tracker. So this looks like it can work with Android. This would actually be, I think, a good AirTag replacement, possibly. Now, the question I have is, when it comes to these guys, because the AirTags work by going near other people's Bluetooth and all that. Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna have to poke around at that. Anyway. Next. What is this? Yosho?
Why you can't eat at this restaurant unless you play with Legos. At this restaurant in Denmark, the menu isn't written on paper. Instead, every dish is represented by Lego bricks. So you create your order by combining one main and 3 sides. And once you're done, you place your Lego creation into a scanning tray. And the fun part is, there's no waiter. Instead, the chefs pack your food inside a giant Lego brick and send it straight to your table on a Lego conveyor belt. This is why you can't eat at this restaurant unless you play with...
I do that. That looks neat. Okay, so what is this? The craziest experiment humans have ever built.
Ready? Right here, out in the middle of the desert, miles from any city, are huge concrete tubes that are part of a giant machine running the most precise experiment humans have ever built. This experiment is happening inside 2 tubes, each 4 kilometers long. And inside each tube, there's a big metal pipe. And at the end of each pipe, scientists place some of the smoothest mirrors ever made. And then they fire a powerful laser that gets split down each tube, bouncing back and forth, building up power until they bring those beams back together to detect something that just 100 years ago, scientists said was impossible to find. Finding it took hundreds of scientists
Was
and
it the
over
Higgs
$1
boson or something like that?
billion. But what exactly did we find? And what's the cutting edge we're finding now that makes those same scientists want to build an even bigger one? Let's go. Right now, I'm here in the control room of this giant machine.
Hey everyone.
Hi everyone, how are you?
I've seen you on the internet.
Yeah, I'm Cleo, great to meet you.
This machine is known as the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or just LIGO. And that is Mike, the head of LIGO. The reason this machine is such a big deal is that up until now, for all of human history, everything that we know about the cosmos has been from waves of light and particles that just happen to come our way. But it turns out there are other ways to sense our universe. Think about it this way. Imagine that you're in a jungle and you can only see. Think about what you know about what's around you. Now, with this machine, it's like all of a sudden we can suddenly hear. Think about what you know now about what's around you. That's why LIGO was built, to create a way to hear our universe. And with this machine, our hearing is getting better, fast. It's as though a few years ago we could only hear the universe yelling, and now we can hear it murmuring. But when scientists started building this machine back in the 90s, it was thought of as high risk, high reward, because it was all based on a prediction made by Albert Einstein 75 years before. Imagine for a second that 2 enormous stars, 100 light years away from us, collide. What happens here on Earth? Well, at first, nothing. We don't see it, we don't feel it. But Einstein predicted that massive things warp space and time around them. And that's what we call gravity. So when these 2 massive stars collide, Einstein said that not only do they produce an explosion of light, but they make ripples that stretch and squeeze space and time. And those ripples move outward like a wave, a gravity wave, a gravitational wave. And Einstein predicted that these gravitational waves travel at the same speed as light. So after 100 years, that light from that collision hits us, and so do these waves. But think about what that means. It implies that everything we know, you, me, the space between us, all of reality as we know it, is getting stretched and squeezed, and we never feel it. But 100 years ago, this was all just a theory, gravitational waves. Most physicists believe that even if Einstein were right, it would be too hard to actually prove. That's because based on Einstein's predictions, this stretch or squeeze would be 10,000 times smaller than the size of a proton. To put that into perspective, trying to measure that is like trying to measure the distance from here to the nearest star 4 light years away and watch watching that distance change by the width of a human hair. Yeah, that's why we had to build this insane machine. It's a giant measuring stick. But if everything is getting stretched and squeezed, including your measuring
that's a little bit mind-blowing.
How would you get an accurate result? No, seriously, how would you do it? Turns out the measuring stick and this are the key. Because what if you used something that we know has a constant speed, right? Like light, and you shoot it down your measuring stick. You could calculate how long it takes the light to go down and bounce back. So if the distance changes, the time the light would take would change too. That would work in principle, but actually doing this is insanely hard. So this is what they built. I'm walking around next to LIGO's measuring sticks right now. That's what these concrete arms are. The way this works is laser light is sent out here and then splits into two, speeding down these identical arms, then hits mirrors at the end and gets reflected back. Now, normally, the arms are perfectly aligned so that the waves of light cancel each other out, resulting in no light hitting the detectors. But if that mysterious, stretchy, squeezy wave comes through, it would change the length of the arms, shift the laser beams ever so slightly, and on the detector, you should see a flicker.
That's a lot of work just to get a tiny flicker.
The easier to measure the change, except the harder to build it in the first place. LIGO's measuring sticks are 4 kilometers long. So long, they need to correct for the curve of the Earth.
The curvature of the Earth is such that, if we launch the light from the corner station, at the ends, the fall off of the curvature of the Earth is about 4 feet.
Now, time to go inside.
The suspense is building. Oh, cool.
This was a big deal. Very few people get to go inside here. I was so excited. Except there were a lot of spiders.
Yeah, widows. That's the main thing I'm worried about.
Less excited about that.
Now we are inside the concrete tube. This is the beam pipe.
And inside the beam pipe is 10,000 cubic meters of nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean there are fewer particles in there than the International Space Station flies through, because they sucked them all out. And the reason they did that is to make sure the only thing in there is the laser.
We're going off to this clean room space.
So yeah, you need to get light going through a vacuum. That makes sense.
Protect ourselves.
I think I look great.
Busted down.
Wow, you look cool.
That's the good thing about $700 glasses. Right?
Why do we have to wear these glasses?
Because the laser that we use is invisible, and if it hits you in the eye, you won't blink. It will blind you, and you can start hearing popping first, which is your blood vessels popping before your field of vision goes cloudy.
Okay, I'm gonna wear the glasses, just in case. Inside this is the laser, where the whole experiment
I don't even want to know how they learned that.
You wouldn't see it, because it's an infrared laser. Its wavelength lies just outside the spectrum that you can see. We sense this as heat. Right now, at the beginning here, only 60 watts of power goes into the experiment. That's actually a lot. My little laser pointer here is probably 0.005 watts. So this is already 12,000 times more powerful, and it's not even close to its max power. Once the laser travels down the arms, it hits the mirrors at the ends, and on its way back, it hits more mirrors, bouncing back and forth within the arms 300 times on average before hitting the detector, building up the laser power to 400 kilowatts. That's 80 million times more powerful than my little laser pointer. But this extreme power has a purpose. More light equals more sensitivity, and more bouncing means a longer distance the light travels.
To give you an idea, 400 kilowatt laser, like you see those 1 watt lasers that you can light a cigarette or like burn things with? Like you should not point those up in the sky. That's 420,000 of those. That's a lot.
Measuring stick, increasing the total travel distance to 1,200 kilometers, which makes any little change easier to measure. But pulling this off is even harder than you think. They have to line this laser up with incredible accuracy. That's what they're doing here at this crazy
More precision than accuracy.
But to look any closer,
yes.
I need to put on some special gear.
Why do we look like this? Why are we gowned up?
It's definitely not to protect us. It's because we're just dirty. right? Like our skin, our eyelashes, our sneezing or coughing. I touched my glasses after wiping my hands, so now I need to wipe my hands again. This is serious business.
Even the tiniest speck of dust on these optics could ruin the whole experiment. So to limit that chance, they only open up these chambers about once a year to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned. It's extremely rare to get to go inside. And once it's all aligned, the laser exits here and enters the arms.
Oh my God! Do you see it? That's the coolest thing.
And while I was here, I learned the most fun way to explain what they're doing with this machine.
Has anyone asked you to do the LIGO dance yet? No. Okay, one hand up in the air, one hand out to the side. Gravitational waves coming towards us. This one goes down, this one goes big. This one goes big, this one goes little. And then it goes faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And that is what's happening, but it's doing it 10 to the minus 22 meters.
Jeez.
So they set up this incredible experiment, but if anything jostles it, it messes the whole thing up. My favorite story about this is how scientists at LIGO found a very weird source of noise. Hey Miko, why did ravens cause an issue at LIGO in 2018?
Here's the deal. Back in 2018, frost formed on these pipes that were part of the cooling system at the end of one of the detector's 4-kilometer arm.
You're gonna trust Microsoft Copilot? I wouldn't trust Microsoft Copilot. It's Microsoft.
The ravens, clever as they are, found the icy pipes and started pecking at them. That tapping created little vibrations that interfered with the laser readings underneath, causing those glitches in the Gabemos data.
This is Miko. It's like Clippy, but way smarter. Actually, hold on, let me show you. There's a secret way to turn it into... There we go, Clippy. I like talking to it because it helps me figure out what's most interesting about a story. Like I can have a conversation and then I can go into the transcript and find sources and figure out what I thought was most cool. Miko, how did they solve the raven problem?
Well, the team got a little creative. They insulated those pipes so that condensation couldn't form and freeze anymore, which means no more frosty treats for the ravens and no more data glitches caused by their tapping.
If you want to chat with Miko, you can scan this QR code or use the link in my description. And make sure to ask how they deal with airplane noise at LIGO. It's a whole thing. Thanks, Miko. Back to the story. So now that the laser is lined up, it's flying down the arms.
Yeah.
It's hitting.
Boo this man. Boo!
They're trying to measure something smaller than a proton. So these can't just be any mirrors. These are some of the smoothest, most reflective mirrors in the world. These things are huge. The main mirrors at the ends of the arms weigh 40 kilograms. And making them takes work on 4 continents over multiple years. Wait, but that doesn't look like a mirror. You can see right through it. That's because these mirrors need to be coated with dozens of layers of different materials to optimize their reflectiveness. But now they definitely don't look like regular mirrors. And that's because they're not made for visible light. They're made to reflect the infrared light of the laser. And on top of that, they're polished to be unbelievably smooth.
Normal people think that their fridge surface is flat, stainless.
Yeah.
But it turns out that if you were to take your fingernail or something and rub across it, it has a peak to valley shape, right? All flat surfaces do.
But those peaks and valleys won't work for the laser.
Those peaks and valleys will distort our detector laser waveform.
A typical mirror in your bathroom is about 90 to 95% reflective. But these mirrors reflect 99.9999% of the infrared light that hits them. That means that practically all of this powerful laser light can keep on bouncing back and forth along these tubes, measuring their length for any changes. So now we've got our powerful laser, our insanely long arms, our super smooth mirrors all aligned, but there's one more thing that could ruin everything. What if you do all of this incredibly delicate work and then a truck drives by? The whole thing could get ruined if the ground that it's on doesn't stay still. And by still, I mean a kind of stillness that you and I have never known.
So the natural movement of the ground that we're standing on is about a nanometer, a billionth of a meter. That means our mirrors have to be made 10 billion times more still than the ground we're standing on.
This machine is 10 billion times more still than the normal still ground. What does that even mean? They did it by creating
This sounds like something I would be talking about back in my college after hitting the ball.
And counteracts any vibrations, even hanging them by strands of glass about 4 times thicker than a human hair, and yet stronger than steel. The details of the engineering here are incredible. And what really blows my mind is that they did all of this work on basically a bet that Einstein was right. So they build this crazy machine, and then they turn it on. And nothing. For 10 years, no flicker. The detector stays silent. They don't see a single gravitational wave. Brutal.
We didn't see anything in those first science runs. We didn't see any gravitational waves at all.
But they kept going, making the machine better and better, more and more sensitive, until in September 2015, they turn on the
That's a lot of money going into
advanced
this.
LIGO, and almost immediately, 3 days later, they finally see. And that flicker, it actually looked like this. Yep, it's a bump on a chart. They call it a chirp. But how did they know that that chirp was actually a gravitational wave? Maybe it was just a truck going by. That's why, 3,000 kilometers away, in a totally different place with none of the same trucks, they'd built a whole nother one. That's right, there are 2 of these enormous, crazy machines working together to check each other's work, and that second machine saw the chirp too. After all this work and all this building and all this genius human effort, 100 years, almost to the day after Einstein predicted it, we saw our first gravitational wave. For those scientists, it meant that they just won the Nobel Prize.
Oh, nice.
And for all the rest of us, it meant a totally new era. Eventually, they figured out that those first waves they detected were caused by 2 black holes merging 1.3 billion light years away. It was a huge impact, causing massive waves, a cosmic yell, basically. And it turns out that the universe yells a lot.
We've made 294 detections to date, and right now we get them about once every 3 days or so.
We've now heard more black holes colliding, creating even bigger ones, stars smashing and exploding, telling us where many of the elements on Earth come from. These sounds let us officially measure the speed of gravity and the expansion of the universe. We first understood light, and then we manipulated it. We're now right at the beginning of understanding gravity. Just imagine what we could do if we could manipulate that. When LIGO first started listening to the universe, they could only hear this far, and they didn't detect anything. Then, here's how far they could hear in 2015, making their first detection. And today, LIGO can reach more than 1,000 times more space than it originally could. And the best part is, we're only just getting started. They're working on new, bigger machines, like this one in Europe. It's a triangle with 3 10-kilometer-long arms buried underground. And in the US, there's another plan for one called Cosmic Explorer, an L shape, but instead of 4-kilometer arms, they want 40. Those observatories would expand our hearing to close to the edge of the observable universe. Humans are astonishing. We gave ourselves and every person after us a new sense. We might be the first living species ever to sense the universe in this way. The universe has been talking to us this whole time, and we can finally hear it. So now,
it's so interesting to think that Einstein just theorized this 100 years ago.
If you believe that there should be more optimistic science and tech stories, subscribe.
That was a nice little video. Okay, so the next thing we have, we're going to come back in a sec. I got to hit the head. I need a bathroom break. We're going to be watching the 12-volt 2x6 Discovery from Jay's Sense that was disturbing. So let me hit the head. I'll be right back, and then we shall continue. are back. So Jay's 2 cents has a video over here. The latest 12-volt 2x6 discovery. I think this has to do with the PCI Express connectors. They've been having a lot of issues. Like, people have gotten fires and everything. I've literally told people, do not buy an adapter or use an adapter. Get a brand new power supply to use that properly. I had to buy a whole new power supply for my 5070 Ti here. And then, of course, had to get appropriate mod cables for it. Or cable mod cables. You know, because I have the black and yellow theme going on. But let's see what he's got for us.
Oh my goodness. I feel like we're not beating a dead horse anymore. We're beating the fossilized dead horse that has already returned to the earth and has started sprouting flowers. But then we dug up those flowers to find the old carcass of the horse so that we can continue to beat it. Sounds very suggestive. But anyway, because we are still learning more things about the 12-volt 2x6 and 12-volt high power cable that I think is important for you guys, because there are some nuances that we're discovering even more than I'm seeing people really talk about. And obviously, since I just went through the whole journey of learning how to desolder and resolder the connector on the 5090s, I want to prevent it from happening again. I don't want to be able to repair it when it happens. I want to prevent it and hopefully help prevent it happening to you. Today's video is sponsored by Thermal Grizzly, and if you're building a custom loop, you need to check out Deltamate.
I feel like the
custom water cooling hardware. Deltamate is built for uncompromising
PCI
thermal
Express
performance, but what really makes it different is how much it simplifies the whole process through modularity and precision manufacturing. And instead of needing a mountain of random fittings to finish one loop, Deltamate uses just 9 modular SKUs to create over 20 traditional configurations, so you get way more flexibility with way less hassle. Everything has a consistent outer diameter, installs cleanly with an 8mm hex key, and even includes rotatable aesthetic covers so you can keep the build looking perfect no matter how your tubing routes. And whether you're running soft or hard tubing, Deltamate supports multiple sizes including 16mm, plus newly added 14mm hard tube and 13mm soft tube. It also comes in black and matte nickel, so it'll match pretty much any build theme. Check out Thermal Grizzly Deltamate at the link below. So what I have on both of these test benches right here are the repaired Astral cards that I worked on. And you'll notice here that we have these cables that are marked in orange, because what we've identified is do you remember how I was like, oh man, I'm not getting the perfect pin distribution that I wanted? And I thought, well, maybe that's just the nuances of the card, right? Now that would be interesting for the Astral, because the Astral has individual power planes for each of the 6 12-volt pins that come in on the 12-volt connector.
Interesting.
Now, just for sanity purposes, we threw that brand new Tough card on the bench over here and saw big pin variance as well. Enough pin variance to where the WireView 2 was actually warning us that it was exceeding 10 amps and was gonna go into shutdown. Now, that's brand new out of the box, and I find it very difficult to believe that that would be the way that the Tough is designed. Like, I'm sorry, no 5090 out of the box should be pulling up 10 plus amps per pin at stock, right? Stock is 600 watts, but still, that shouldn't be happening. So I started doing some deep dive and started playing around with different cables and started experiencing some things that really show that the problem is not even necessarily the connector in our case, well, in some of them anyways, but what appears to be potential wearing out of the wires themselves somewhere in the sleeving. Let me explain what happened. This particular cable right here, at least we think it's this one. It could potentially be this one. They're identical. These are some Amazon cables that I got over a year ago, well, about a year ago when the 5090 first came out. And let me just be fully transparent. These cables get cycled way more than any average consumer would, because we have seen probably 100 different iterations and card installs or more go through our test benches when we're doing all the benchmarks, when we're retesting things, when we're unplugging the cable and plugging in a new card. Like, it is very unrealistic as to what these cables go through versus an average consumer. But just the other day, this cable was plugged into the card, and then this was plugged into the PMD, because we're running the Corsair power supplies. Although I did switch this one to an MSI 1250 because I wanted native 12 volt on each end, just to rule out whether or not part of what we were dealing with is the Corsair terminating to 2 8-pin Type 4s. Which should not honestly be a problem. I don't think you really need to have 4 PCI Express tying in, because they're all gonna just terminate down to 1 wire anyway. So this is just a single wire lead all the way across. if the 12 volt high power on each end can carry enough current per wire, then this should be fine too. Anyway, I digress. What I noticed was, and Phil was watching this happen, this was plugged into the card and this was plugged into the PMD. Didn't touch either end. I touched the middle of the cable and did that, and then the card shut down. That told me there's a weak wire somewhere in this harness. Now, because of how many times it's been plugged in and flopped over and plugged back in and flopped over out of the way and pushed out of the way and the rig moved
That
and
still
dangling and
shouldn't
all
be
that,
an
who
issue.
knows what kind of stress has been put on this. Now, this is a pretty heavy braided cable. And what I mean by that is like the sleeving on here is very thick, actually. So we don't even actually know how thin or what gauge wire this is in here. It tells me this cable is worn out, but not because of the plug end. In fact, we were getting some pretty major swings. If I didn't record it, and I really should have, but when I plugged it in, the same card over here, because we would go from this rig to this rig back and forth just to measure the pin variance under load to see whether or not we were dealing with the card or dealing with the
Let's
cable.
just do 12 gauge
Romex. Put the cards under the iron
12
again
gauge the
to
entire
reflow
way
those
for each
holes,
pin.
thinking maybe I didn't get
Problem
solid
solved.
connection through all layers of the board, which could potentially, if I was getting the same pin always having a low amp draw through it, then that would be an indicative of, okay, we've moved it to different rigs, we put it on different cables, the same pin is problematic. That could tell me it was potentially my problem. But what we started noticing was by changing the cable or unplugging it, plugging it back in, or even moving it to a different rig, the low pin was changing, it was moving around. It's like, okay, that's not a physical problem with the card itself, that's something between the card and the power delivery system that was causing the problem. And the only thing there is the cable. Now, just before starting this video, I looked over at this cable and went, that's a shiny spot. The corner pin on this Corsair cable has pushed out. That is not the first one we've had that happen to. In fact, you can see just how loose that pin is. So it's almost like the barbs that hook into the plastic have either become bent or in some way. And so there's a lot of play there. So what happens is you plug the card in and it pushes that pin back out. Now that particular pin right there is a ground pin, which now means if it's not making solid connection, the other wires have to carry that full, remember, power has to have a positive and a negative if we're talking about DC current, right? So that means if we have 6 12 volt pins bringing power in and we only have 5 of those ground wires, going negative and returning that power to the power supply, now we're putting more amp draw on the return side or the ground side than we would want. And that could potentially lead to burning up that particular cable. In fact, the longer I let that sit here right now, that's a bit of a problem. But here's the crazy part. If we look at the screen right here, even just an idle, I would expect it to be potentially a pin 6 or something showing the low power, but it's actually pin 5 right now showing low power at 0.28 amps at idle. So I wanna just kind of see if I can push this in real quick and see if we get any. Yeah, well, as you can see, the whole card just shut down by me touching it. So either one of two things are happening here. And it's probably gonna go full speed now? No. Okay. Either, no, that's a ground pin. So that has to mean there's individual ground sensing. I've had people argue with me that the Astral still has a unified ground plane. But if that were the case right now, having that one ground wire not touch or make poor contact, why would it shut down the card? Because it should still have all the other five.
I've just always had issues with this, new PCI Express connector. So when I got that, set up my 5070 Ti, I remember looking at it, the stock connectors, and I was not happy with them. The cable mods, I think, are a little bit better in terms of quality, I will be honest. The other thing is, if you notice, he's got the straight connector. I did not care for the straight connector. If you look at mine, you'll see I have a right-angled connection. I think that's a better approach for it, but of course, they're going for, they want to make sure it works. Not everyone's going to have a right angle to go, like they're going to want the right angle to go maybe up or down or however the, case build is. So you have to spec your cable out for that. As I did with mine, where the cable goes down and then to the power supply unit. You also ideally want a shorter run, if possible. Mine, I'd have to say, is probably a little bit longer than it needs to be, but that's because I wanted slack for when I pull the power supply out and, have to service it and everything. But Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this, but it makes sense that the cables themselves would be the weak point, because if you look at the pins on the PCI Express, 12 plus 4, whatever that connector is called, they're a lot smaller and a lot weaker, and that's been one of my critiques, because the PCI Express 8 pins and 6-pin connectors, those were beefy mothers. You didn't really have issues with those lasting, even when you unplugged and plugged multiple times in, whereas these, on my 5070 Ti, I've had to look at that and be like, is that in? And, like, tug on it and make sure everything is right, but yeah.
Ground pins carrying the signal. In fact, it kind of is a unified ground plane, because you can even see in the pad of the PCB when I was doing my soldering, it's a solid ground, just a big chunk of ground coming to it. So it's still weird to me that happened. I'm gonna pull this pin out entirely right now. With zero effort, it just came right out.
That's
I wanna see now, will the card turn on with that missing? I'm curious as to why I can boot the card without it touching, but having it make maybe poor solid contact for a moment was enough to shut down the card. Obviously, that's pretty extreme right there. Now, we know that this can work like this because remember, Der Bauer, when he was doing some of his testing, actually, I think he was using a non-astral, because with an astral this wouldn't work, but he was like removing or cutting wires to where he only had 2 wires drawing or pulling power into the graphics card, and then he showed how even those 2 wires didn't melt. Now, obviously, it's not recommended to do that, but so that cable is clearly bad. Let's get this cable out of here real quick and see if I can put in one of my other funky cables to show you some of the crazy pin distribution. Now, just to put this into perspective right now, this has been running for Mark behind me right now, right? This has a brand new cable mod RT. This is a right angle connector. This is not like the ones that were recalled, by the way. That's not.
See, that's exactly what I was saying, is cable mods, I felt like they had better cables and the right-angled connector. And that's exactly what I did on my build. I did it because I was like, looking at that cable, I was never really comfortable with how it would carry the weight on that pin, knowing how small they are, and then loop it back around. I was like, I'm going to go straight shot down with the right angle and then curve it down. And I was like, that's going to be aesthetically better looking and I think structurally more sound. And I was really impressed with the cable mod cables when they came over here, just how thick and beefy they were, that I was very happy with the cable mod cables. Now, of course, it's a little bit of an investment using cable mod cables because they're like, I think I spent like close to $300 between the SATA cable in the back, which I didn't even need apparently, the PCI Express one, the motherboard, that's probably 200 or so bucks. And then I have the EPS connector up there. Now I'm using the original EPS connector that I had for the old motherboard, which was a 4+8 connection, because I swapped out the motherboard for just a 8-pin connection that it had, because the motherboard died, if you remember, and I had to swap everything out. I do have a replacement cable for that somewhere. Yeah, right here. So eventually I'll crack that open and swap over the cable there. But I've been very, very satisfied with how beefy these cable mod cables are. They definitely are sleeved and they feel chunky. Like, yeah, looking at the pins, everything, these are really, I think, good quality cables. You get what you pay for, basically. But yeah.
Adapter is totally different, and this is 12-volt high power, not even 2x6. We've had these for like 2 or 3 years sitting in the box. So I need some new cables right now to sanity check. So what I have right now is a brand new cable coming out of the MAG power supply from MSI into my PMD, and then the right angle cable coming out of my PMD into the graphics card, and look at my power distribution. This is the card that I was getting ready to resolder. But under load right now, it says 610 watts coming through the cable. PMD is actually reporting 644 average watts right now. Remember, we know that due to efficiency loss, it's going to pull more through the cable to supply the power that's needed
Ohm's
after
law, you
heat
got
efficiency
resistance
loss. So
going
that's
on
normal.
that, yeah.
It's a little on the high side, but it's normal. 8.2, 8.2, 8.5, 8.6, 8.9, and 9.0 is the highest right there. And this has been running now for 18 minutes and 38 seconds under load. So that's better than what I was getting when I initially showed you guys, look, I did it, I fixed it. And I guess I did fix it, because I thought maybe I still sucked and something was wrong, and that's why we weren't getting it to, that's why we weren't able to get it to.
Although it's insane that a lot of people are having these 5090 issues so bad, because, it's just, I think it's a little bit too much power to be in a consumer system. We're almost at the point right now where you'll need an electrician to come to your house to install a high-end computer, because what is it? I think it's like 1800 watts safe load that you can have. 120 volt, 15 amp. So you can have, okay, so you can have 1800 watts consistently, but you want 80%. 1800 times 0.8. So yeah, you'd have about 1440 watts that you can safely do, but I would honestly like to eventually get a, so my circuits in my house, where this corner is, this corner of the house, I had a dedicated circuit put in just over here. There's another circuit running around that wall over there, and another circuit where the 3D printers are. Each of those, as I recall, I put 20 amp circuits in there. I think there's 10 gauge wire that I ran. But if we look at that, that's 120 times 20, that's 2400 times 0.8. Like, we're already getting to the point where the average person is going to have to seriously consider an electrician if they start putting a machine there with a high-end GPU. I'm reasonably safe there, but even then, I'd probably want to move to a 220 system, because if you do 220, and then let's say you put a 15 amp circuit on there, you now can deal with 3300 watts. This is where Europe has the advantage, because they're not going to run into these limits nearly as much as we do. Because even at the 80% there, they have about 2600 watts to play with. If I recall, they use 15 amp. Maybe they use 10 amp circuits, which even then, you're talking about 2200, 1760 safely you can use there. Can you consistently use more power? Yeah, but then you're kind of just pushing too much voltage, too much amperage down the cable there. And there's other considerations too, like box fill and everything like that. But like over in this corner over here, I've got two desktops, as you can imagine. If I have both of these machines going full bore, there's an 850 watt power supply in here. I want to say a 650 over here. Plus monitors, all the equipment, everything like that. It's still quite a bit, because at that 120 by 224 with 1920, I still have room, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. That's why I tell people a lot of times, you should really understand Ohm's law and electronics if you're going to want to understand IT, especially in networking and all that. There's a lot of times where my background, even as apprenticing as an electrician, has paid off dividends. Where you been, Chief? We missed you, brother. I've been busy. I've been working. I've been planning to get a new job soon, as I've been talking about in the Discord, and my new job will be next month. 40% pay bump. Still remaining hybrid. Don't have to go return to office like they were trying to talk about at work, and get away from toxic leadership that kept saying like I wasn't providing enough value, but they're so fucking out of touch. But yeah, anyway.
I needed in terms of even distribution, so I was getting ready to resolder it, which is totally unnecessary. Now, this is a brand new one, by the way. I want to point this out. That's why there's no orange on it. This one had been used quite a bit. This one that's got all the individual like wires that are separated like this is when we did our video about when we used the amp clamp meter on a regular 5090, which the Astro would have made that video a lot easier because of the individual pin sense. It would have been easier to log that. But we use the clamp meter to actually measure the current
thank you,
coming through
Ion.
this. So we know this cable has been cycled.
I'll have a video
over
talking
100
about
times, 'cause we did 100 times.
why I left the job and learning lessons from that for people moving forward, because a lot of people get taken advantage of their jobs and basically just teach people how to know their value. That'll be coming out probably in the next few weeks or anything. Like, it was so bad when I left my job. I not only just said I'm resigning, I gave HR a PDF document that was 8 pages long in 11-point font with 13 different points about why I'm leaving. And I broke it down and said, I was giving constructive feedback saying this is what you can do to improve the company, and everything. A lot of it ultimately comes down to they need to get rid of their some of their people in leadership, or they need to change their tune because they've driven a lot of people out of the company, a lot of great people. And the thing I'm going to miss most about my job is some of the people I worked with, because I made some really great friends. But ultimately, I got to do what's good for me. That's why I'm also working my bachelor's right now, because I need to get that stupid checkbox, because I feel like I've been rejected from a lot of job opportunities because I don't have the stupid checkbox. I mean, WGU, I'm going through there to at least get the bachelor's degree. I'm already 6 classes in, not even a month. I'm just hauling ass because a lot of it's basic knowledge and fundamentals that I've already known. Like, they require you to get some certs to pass certain classes. So, I literally had to go get my CompTIA plus. I had no interest whatsoever. I've been in the field for 15 years. I didn't even study for that class. I just took it, and the lowest score I got was 826 out of 900. And the first test was 847, I want to say, out of 900, and the second one was an 826, which I just took this morning. So, yeah, and then I got to take my Security Plus, Network Plus, Data Plus, Pen Test Plus, ITIL 4, and Project Plus, like I said. But yeah, there's quite a few things I got to do. I'll definitely have a video coming out about the CompTIA and other certs that I've been taking, to talk about them and my views and my thoughts and everything. And then overall, once I graduate WGU, I will have a video talking about my thoughts and opinions and all that about WGU. Overall, I think it's a relatively positive experience just to at least get that checkbox of a degree, especially with the flexibility I have, but yeah.
That video alone. So I'm not going to trust that cable anymore, but this is a brand new one right here. So I'm going to plug this in and measure again to see what happens to our current. What I didn't show you, because that wire pulled out, was that I was getting some of the amp draw to be as high as 11 amps, which is certainly
Ooh, 11 amps?
within spec.
That's nasty.
And I don't like how easy that pushes in. Here's my problem too, is in terms of fitment, I'll get it lined up. And look, it just takes no effort to push that in.
Oh, that's
Here is
nasty.
the cable mod one. Ugh, that one takes a lot more force.
Yeah, the cable mod one, I had to push in, and eventually I was looking at the tiny gap and I'm like, is it in? And finally, because if I didn't push it in, and you gotta not baby it as much, it won't be fully seated. And that's where a lot of the problems have been with these new PCI Express connectors, is people not having them fully seated. But yeah, I've been a fan of the cable mod connector heavily. It's beefy, it's thick. That's what she said. But I've been very happy with cable mod cables for my past 2 builds with this machine. But in all honesty, I'll probably still use cable mod cables over the OEM ones for the PCI Express 12 volt to whatever cables.
Which makes me a lot more comfortable. That Corsair cable is a brand new one. Now, we did a video where we talked about the Corsair cables, and we're not a fan of them for a few reasons. I don't think it's necessarily a problem that it goes to an 8-pin. It's probably safer to only have the 12 volt on one side, if you want to know the truth. But what you just saw, this insertion force right here, and then the amount of movement and wiggle it has, I'm just not comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm not either.
6.0, 9.
That's a big reason why I got rid of the Corsair cables, as well as, first it was an aesthetic thing, but then once I got the cable mod cables, I'm like, these are actually nicer cables. It's an expensive investment. I don't recommend it for everyone, but yeah.
9.1,
I probably don't need it for my 5070 Ti, but
9.1,
yeah.
8.0. See, now we're already hitting some red numbers.
Ooh.
It's doing worse than the busted cable. Now, it's pretty obvious that because of the loose fitting nature of that cable, that the loose fitting pins are not able to carry as much amps as the tight fitting pins. So power.
So ultimately, it might have been bad cables.
Electricity is like a fluid. It wants to travel to the path of least resistance, which means it's going to want to prefer the pins that are carrying the most contact surface, or surface area, if you will. So because the better pins are able to carry more amps, we have pin 1 doing very light lifting at 6.2 amps. And then we have pin 6, which is the other outside end, a little bit less than the rest, but again, the middle pins are carrying the bulk of it. Here's the one next to us right here, for reference, that is doing exactly what we should be doing, and it just turned off.
Oh!
Let's do this now, because let me tell you what I do have. That's so loose. This is not a cable mod ad, I swear, but I do have native cables that are intended to go from Corsair to 12 volt high power. And they're actually 3. They have 3 plugs on it. So I'm gonna plug that bad boy in, get that going to the PMD, and then we'll show how just changing that cable is gonna change the behavior of everything you're seeing right now. But that card's shutting down right now. It's both a bad thing and a good thing. Okay, so this is a CSR cable from CableMod. Once again, CableMod is not sponsoring this video. They don't even know I'm making this video. It's just what we have on hand. This is their more basic cable. It does terminate to just 2 8-pin PCI Express. And this is like their Pro version, which has the 90-degree cable. This one terminates to 3. But to keep it kind of in parity, to make sure that we are doing A-B comparison here, is I'm gonna go direct to the graphics card first. And let's check insertion force. Oh my gosh. Ugh. You can see, you can hear the crunch. It was like, so that's got a nice tight fit. Now I want to see what we've got with just changing that cable out. Already at idle, 0.40, 0.38, 0.38, 0.36, 0.34, 0.34. But look at the power distribution now. 84, 81, 81, 87, 84, 83. Even if the cable is
ridiculous
new,
that
you
the
can't
cable may have
trust.
been a
And look at the
problem
bend
with
that
one
this
of
is
these.
kind of getting on there. It's a lot softer of a cable, right? So that's a pretty, I mean, it's not hurting it in any way, but look at that. That is really good, solid pin distribution right there. All right, what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna plug that into the PMD, and then I'm gonna show you another example of bad cables, because now I've got, like I said, these long-term use ones that I've been running for our test benches, which are definitely worn out. Ironically now, we're showing really solid pin distribution. Not really, yeah. See how pin 2 is down at 7.2, pin 5 and 6 are carrying most of the load at almost 10 amps. That's at 6.8, right? So that good cable you just saw me use is now plugged into the PMD. The PMD has a unified 12 volt and ground distribution, so it's not per pin. So that means essentially this is now like the power supply, like as if this was attached to the 12 volt rail in the power supply, which means now any variance we're seeing is specifically with this cable. Now look at that, pin 2 is dropping. It was down in the 5s for a second there, which means the other pins are having to carry more of the load. So that one's at 10.1, 9.3, 9.4. I want to see now if this is the one that if I wiggled just right, it turned off. There we go, look at that, where it's resting now. 5.6. So yeah, there's a prime example of a cable, let me shut this down, of a cable that looks perfectly fine on the connector ends, which is really the only way people are kind of evaluating whether or not their cables look worn out or not. Now, if you look on both ends, like nothing looks out of place. They all sticking out, nothing's pulled back. But clearly something is wrong with this cable. Now even just idle this distribution, right, with these fresh cables, they're all in the midpoint threes, exactly where it should be, under load. It's perfect. I mean, one could probably argue pin 1 slightly low, but I mean, we're talking the widest variance between the lowest and highest pin is 0.7 of an amp.
That's crazy.
Which is perfectly normal. I mean,
I originally just bought my cable mod cables because they
8.26 to 8.94.
They look pretty.
That's perfectly normal.
But when I got them, like I said,
what I was about to do was put
like,
these cards under the iron again unnecessarily. And it really was Phil that saved me from that, because he was like, dude, I think you're chasing a cable problem, not a card problem. And I was like, why do you say that? He goes, because if it was a card or a solder problem, you would have consistency on the pins that's acting weird. You wouldn't have it move around. It's not like the solder joints jumping around,
right?
You know? So anyway, this is now exactly what we expect to see. This is comfortable, nothing's in the red, temperatures are great, right? Everything's right with this. This has been running for 42 minutes, and this is how the distribution is with the exact same setup. Only it's a different power supply, but from the PMD to the card is the exact same cable and stuff. Now you might be asking yourself, Jay, I don't have an Astral. I can't do per pin monitoring. Now you might be thinking to yourself, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm running a 4070 or I'm running a 5070. It doesn't pull that kind of power. Low wattage cards have also melted themselves because if you start getting to a scenario where pins are or the wire and the pin is operating outside of its spec, then this can happen to anyone. We've seen 5080s and 4080s melt cables. We've seen 5070s melt cables. We've seen 9070 XT Sapphire cards that run this same connector melt the cable at half the wattages that a 5090 pulls. So don't think that you're immune from this because you just don't have a ridiculously overpriced and overhyped 5090. This is where the WireView comes in. Again, not a sponsor. I know this just sounds like QVC for all the shit you should be buying today, but it's not. It's just, this is the formula I've stumbled across that's like the safest for us. This allows you to do per pin monitoring on cards that do not have it built in. So the only cards that have it built in right now, as far as I know, is the Astral and the Matrix. I don't know if the Galax Lab OCs or the MSI Lightning has it. I would assume they probably do. It seems like a really good thing to start building in. But the WireView,
I looked at getting one of those. The problem is apparently with my specific GPU, it doesn't work in terms of physically fitting. Because I wanted the Gigabyte 5070 Ti Eagle OC. I like Gigabyte. But yeah.
$170, it's not cheap.
But I'm running cable mod cables, so.
What's better? $170 device that will shut down your card for you if something is wrong? Or replacing the card, or even mailing it into someone to have it repaired? Because I can promise you the repair is going to cost you more than that. The bench fee alone for most repair shops is $125 before repair. So I would honestly recommend this. I think it's back ordered for a bit, but this is like truly insurance for your investment, which any graphics card tier this day.
Thought you were going to stream the
So these are all
ball.
junk.
I don't watch American
yourself, Jay, what
football,
cables are
really.
they? And please let me preface this with the exception of the brand new Corsair one that's doing what you guys saw. These cables have been put through the paces. They have definitely done more heavy lifting than any consumer cable would. But these guys right here, these were easy DIY from Amazon. Got a solid year's use out of them before getting to the point to where we were uncomfortable with the pin variants. Obviously, the Corsair cables that come with the ATX 3.1 and 3.0 power supplies, and then cable mod Stealth Sense cable. That's what we're using. So hang on to this guy. This actually works. In fact, this is the one, like I said, that shows that has 3 8-pins that connect directly to the Corsair power supply. You can get them either 12-volt high power or 2x6, or 2x6 now, on both ends if you want, or you can get them direct to your power supply manufacturer. If you feel like, I honestly think this is the way to go for your particular power supply, rather than going 12-volt high power on both ends, because it really reduces the potential of the connector issue to 50% failure rate, because now you're only dealing with 1 instead of 2. So you can get these, you can get them that have matching ends for Corsair, Cooler Master, Asus, Seasonic, Fantex. Because remember, there's only like 3 ODMs in the world really for high-end and even regular PC power supplies. So you just go to their website, tell them what you have, and they'll give you the number, and then you can even just buy it off Amazon if you want. They come next day for most people, and they're about 29 bucks for the cable. But I would go with the PCI Express, the standard power end. That way you only have one 12 volt to worry about. There you go. Your cable might look fine. The connectors might not look like they have loose pins or anything, but you could have a problem in the middle of the strand, as I just demonstrated. Hope this helps somebody and stops someone maybe from melting their shit and it's not too late. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
That's good to know. Because I know there's been a lot of worry about the PCI Express connector cables, melting things and all of that. I know it's been a thought on my mind, like, how do I make sure that, I hit the wrong button to turn the music back on. How do I make sure that my computer remains safe? Because, you know, I just bought this GPU in December, and along with the power supply, and got all that set up, and I want to make sure it lasts. Because this is my work machine too, that I use for all of my personal projects and stuff. I'm just glad that Cable Mod apparently is great, but yeah, so anyway, it's getting a little bit late. I still got that job that I don't care much to go to, but it is tomorrow. So I will be back on stream tomorrow evening. And yeah, it's been good hanging out with all of you. Make sure, if you haven't already, to follow me on all my socials and join the Discord and Matrix server. The links are in the bio for all of you, if you aren't already. And as always, love you all. Stay safe. Happy hacking. And stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch. But otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow.